Keep going.
6 p.m. Kathy, please call the roll.
Commissioner Bernstein?
Here.
Commissioner Flores Weisskopf is not in attendance yet. Commissioner Grossberg?
Here.
Vice President Ruttenberg?
I'm here.
And President Kaplan.
I'm here as well. And Commissioner Weisskopf is here.
Okay.
Okay, additions to the agenda. Does anybody have any additions to tonight's agenda? Nope. First thing we're going to discuss from a memorial hearing, Liza.
So in your packet is a letter that was sent to the park board, I believe it was back in April, from Corey Fox with a request regarding Alexa Weiss. And so I distributed this letter to the board when we received it, and Corey and I have been in communications. And we have invited him to come to the meeting tonight to address the board on his request. So without further ado, Corey, if you want to come up and have a seat at the hot seat.
Sure.
And
Cool it down, I'm sure, so it's fine. I wouldn't need a mic, voice carries, so let me know if it's too loud. So Corey Fox, appreciate the time. Hopefully you read the letter. Just rather not go through all the facts again, but Liza, appreciate you being diligent and helping me get to sit in front of everybody here. I've read the policies for park naming, building namings, et cetera. Certainly respect those policies. Completely understand that I'm certainly not the first and won't be the last person to sit up here and ask for the board to consider whether we should, name something after, someone who's from Highland Park, in this case, a third generation Highland Parker from the Gilbert Weiss family. But, I just want to say a couple things, and obviously if this is the right forum to discuss what we need to do to push the agenda forward, whether it's philanthropic, economic, et cetera, that's great. If that's a further communication later, certainly respect that, but just wanted to put the idea out there and see if there's anything we can pursue going forward. So just briefly, Alexa Weiss was a 9.5-year-old, almost 10-year-old girl who passed away from brain tumors, fought those tumors for almost all of her life, 7.5 years. And, she did it in a way, and her family did it in a way that was, remarkable, and not only to people that knew them, but people that just knew the story. And I'm sure there, as I said, a lot of people that would sit and say they've gone through sad things. Totally respect it, not diminishing what other people have done or asked. But I do feel this is really, really different. This was really a community loss and a community event. And I'll give you some examples. I look at naming as something that's, and the policy stated as well, beyond what it does for the community, whether it's economic, et cetera. It's really about legacy. And Alexa was a teacher. She was a teacher to grandparents. She was a teacher to parents. She was a teacher to my kids, probably their first teacher. She passed away at a time that was for second through 8th grade, the first kind of formative years, introduction to a lot of these things. And I think if you spoke to the children that are in all of our elementary schools and our junior high schools, they will know her. They will know about her. They'll know everything that was great about her and her family. They'll know the way that she fought illness. They'll know what she stood for. And, I just remember when I was a kid, I grew up right next to Larry Fink Park. And, Larry Fink, the name meant something to me. It was kind of mythical. You felt like Larry Fink had to be a great person. He had to do something great. But I never knew anybody that knew him or could tell me. But I think if you want to name something and have it resonate, we have an opportunity here to do it with something where my children, kids who are 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, 40 years from now, when they're raising children in Highland Park, 30 years from now, they can actually tell meaningful stories about what a great person this was, what a great family it was, how long they've been in this community. And to me, it's significantly more meaningful than just putting a name on a board or on a building. There's a particular building at Rosewood that I know she wanted to have a birthday party at, and if you want to speak to family, you can. But 2 days after she passed away, she was going to have a party at the Interpretive Center. It's where her family took their last pictures before she passed away. So it's very meaningful for them. But again, I'm not here to suggest that we want to do this only because it's meaningful to family. I think there's thousands and thousands of people in this community that would find this incredibly meaningful. Something that really would have legacy value beyond just economic value. So without going into kind of how heart-wrenching it was, how sad it was, I think just want to kind of present to people that I think there are generations, both grandparents all the way down to really young children, 5, 6, 7 years old, that this would be particularly meaningful. I'm very, very comfortable that if this becomes an economic question, that there are thousands of people that would be willing to participate. So this is not just a wealthy family that wants to put a name up. I'm also confident that there'd be thousands and thousands of people that would be willing to sign for support of this. I spoke to Liza before. I fully appreciate and understand that there's maybe perhaps an unwritten policy that we're not going to do any naming at Rosewood. Look, I'm a lawyer by trade. I find exceptions to rules all the time, so I'd be happy to talk to the people that have asked for this before and see if I can gain their support as well as yours. So, if there are questions, perhaps don't need to be personal about what happened or why. I don't think it's significant, but not of particular relevance. I really just think this is a community ask. I will say one other thing. I'm not a family member. I'm a friend, but I'm diminishing my significance, which is important to me. I probably only spent 30 or 40 hours total with Alexa in my life. So I could be replaced in this seat by 5,000 other people in this community that I think would want to say the exact same thing. So I just don't want you to think I'm a son or a cousin or an uncle that is here, pushing this forward. I'm not. I'm just somebody who knows the family, saw the way the community rallied, saw kids in every elementary school paint toenails and fingernails blue, sold hats and raised thousands of dollars, all went to charity. This is a different case, and I'm hopeful that the board will consider it, with that kind of hindsight and thought in mind, and I guess foresight as well.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Corey?
I do.
Yes,
Well,
Mike.
not just questions, but thank you for doing this.
Mhm.
I know I became part of the, aware of this through Facebook and tried to spread the love. And you mentioned teaching and storytelling. And the two things that that brings to mind for me in the Park District is Heller. We haven't really talked about it, and this is my first experience with naming issues. So I don't know how much goes on just out here or whatever, but this is the first time I've read the policy regarding Rosewood and everything like that. But the moment you mentioned that her legacy, that she's been teaching since she was diagnosed or maybe before that, as the first thing that kicked into mind are the classes that I saw and the camps I see that go on at Heller. And I'm just wondering if you have any experience out there, if you have any kind of vision at all for what could be done in her name there.
So, look, I would ultimately defer decision to her family and, people that I frankly would say are of significant more importance to them than me. I'm, here on my own volition, but certainly with their support. So, we could certainly talk about it. And, if the board ultimately says that Interpretive Center or Rosewood is off limits, which I hope is not the case, or there are certain, thresholds or things we need to do to make that happen, I think we'll pursue it and pursue it very aggressively. But if not, perhaps Heller is an interesting idea. I'm sure there's a number of places in Highland Park that may resonate and be meaningful. But, look, I defer to you guys, but I certainly would ask that you consider, what we put out first, and we'd be happy to listen to the answer. But Terry, I do appreciate your point. And look, when I say teaching in this regard, there were certain lessons that I need to teach my children, and as this went, as everyone went through this, that were really, really difficult, and were really, really important. And I know they're better people for it. And they're some of them were lessons you don't want to teach at a certain age, and some of them were lessons that I was very fortunate to teach. So the kind of tangential approach to finding a teaching place, I think maybe a great idea. I just don't know that it resonates with the family the way that they may want it to. But as I've said, I'm personally not simply looking for a place where 5 family members can say, that's our daughter or our family member's legacy, look what we did. Like, we're looking for a place where I think the whole community could come and say this was an incredible person with an incredible family and be really proud to see it and teach. And talk about, really the important things that we all learned from what we went through. So appreciate the suggestion. And obviously any other ones that you guys have.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, here's my suggestion, and this is a very sensitive subject.
Understand.
Okay, so let me begin by saying, and listen, I know the family. I understand what unfortunately I do understand what they're going through and what they will be going through, and I understand what you're trying to pursue. And my suggestion is we follow the lead that we've done in the past with regard to Brian Schwartz, to Danny Kniff, even Kenny Bernstein, and then maybe appoint a member or two to work with the family to try to, and I'm not making a judgment call whether this is the right place, not wrong place, but I think what we need to do is have a dialogue with the family. And again, I'm volunteering. Obviously, this is a very sensitive subject for me, so I'll leave it up to the rest of the board. I get it. And I don't want to say anything else. I'm sorry.
I did speak to John Bayless today, who led a lot of the Brian Schwartz work.
I mean, I was on the board when we
Yeah.
did the Brian Schwartz. That's when I just got on the board. Danny Kniff was before
Yeah.
I got on the board. But I was somewhat involved with the design, what they did over at Sunset for the Brian Schwartz, working with the Annixter family and everything like that with regard to that project. I think that, I don't think we should be horse trading and talking about it like this in this type of forum. I think that it's more appropriate that we have this dialogue, and this is a process.
Yeah, no, I just wanted
Yes.
to raise it. I
Okay.
certainly appreciate everything you said. Certainly, I think a lot of us empathize with exactly what you're saying, and
Yeah.
we get it. And,
And,
if
and,
you guys
and
are good,
listen,
let's just-
and we get it. I mean, it's, Highland Park's is multi-generational. It's about families. And I could speak for myself as one of the board members. I get it. We have done this in the past, and it's not about money. I just want to let you know, it's not about someone who can write the biggest check, and that's what they get. I mean, we have the Rory Deutsch Todd area. We have Danny Kniff. Kenny's over at Westridge 1. So we have other things there. It's not about money. So I think I'm confident we'll be able to find the appropriate way to honor an important member of our community.
Great.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you for coming here tonight. And that story was definitely heard throughout Highland Park. Like even Facebook, someone had a connection. And, just as being family oriented, being parents, being aunts, uncles, anytime you come in contact with a child, it just kind of hits us all to the core. My question, well, I have two things. First off, the conversations with the parents. If we need a second, I would love to be the other representative. And for me, my concern is how do we have these conversations, because we do have rules. There is the Open Meetings Act. We do have regulations as to what we can talk about in private. And basically, if it's a quorum, 3 or more, we can't discuss certain park district things, and it has to do with real estate. We got to kind of figure that out, because I think we should all be involved in this. I think it's important because I know you said you're an attorney. We have 3 very bright attorneys here, a very gifted, music teacher, and you have a public relations person. I don't know what good that is, but, I think we can all come together with certain ideas and figure out how to make this work without breaking any rules, and, contributing in some way to some decision or some suggestions, because I have to tell you that I wonder if one of the reasons for Rosewood, it's tricky because it's new territory for us. It was governmentally funded. We had grants. It was it's tricky. It's not like a private thing that we own. So I imagine we have to look into that to make sure we're not doing anything wrong there. And then the other thing is, I would urge the family as they leave here today, with Terry's suggestion, the first thing that came to my mind, okay, and maybe this is why a conversation is so important, we have some needs at our park district that would just flow beautifully with this idea. I can tell you at the top of my head, when I heard you, I was like, yeah, Rosewood's nice, and then Westridge came to mind. Westridge was a school prior to being the Park District office. We have preschool classes here. We have after-school, kindergarten, pre-K stuff. Camp is housed here. And this is, again, another opportunity where in my opinion, and it's all it is wow, this is where kids are. All kids from mom's morning away to taekwondo, and there's a lot of cool things. A lot of birthday parties are here. It's a very popular place. So we definitely should see how we can work together. And I would ask that the family not get set on anything, because it may not be possible. But it doesn't mean that we don't want to do something or to work together.
Great. No, I'm certain they appreciate it. I'll speak for them, but happy to put in as much time as we need here. And thank you guys for being open to the idea.
Corey, I'm going to take both their ideas, and I think Cal is right that on a subject like this, we're not ready. We've never discussed this before.
Mhm.
We've gotten your letter, we've read the rules. I haven't had a conversation with any of my other board members about it. I wanted to wait till you got here.
Sure.
I think Cal's right that this isn't the place to start. It's not the time to start. I think Lori's right that
Oh, I like that. Did you guys hear that?
that
Said I was right.
that we will find one or two of us to sit down with the family. My only question but I wrote down, were there any other venues or any other thoughts the family had?
Why don't we
Just-
defer that discussion
but-
to
but-
later, different
but
point,
just-
different
no,
time?
no.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I had thought of.
Let's.
We're coming in, so what I'm gonna say is, why don't we table this? Why don't we get one or two board members to meet with you and the family?
Sure.
As long as there's two or less, you guys can discuss anything with the board discussion had,
Terrific.
and we can table it at this point for now until then.
Well, there's no action being taken tonight
Right,
anyway.
right.
So,
Just even the discussion.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I just want to Lori's point, how do the five of us talk about this then?
I'll tell you how we do it. Is that we just like anything else we do, is that we'll have a dialogue with the family, and the staff will come with a recommendation back to the board, and then the board will make a determination. So we'll be able to discuss that in open session. But I think that this is a very sensitive subject, and I think that it has to be handled properly. And again, the board doesn't have to take the recommendation. The board can do whatever they want at that point, but that's how the dialogue is done at the board level. So let's do some homework first. Let's sit down with the family and frankly grieve with the family, and then figure out how we best honor an important member of our community. And that's the most important thing that we do at this point. And then as we move forward, then we could figure out the details. But I think that's where we start.
But might I add, what Terry said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I was thinking along the same lines, is I'm not comfortable having the board, or staff make a recommendation and discussing it. Like you said, it's private. I would like to have private conversations with the board members. There may things.
You can do anything you want. You can have a one-to-one conversation with
Okay,
anybody
you
you
would
want.
just so, but
Right,
you
but
had
it-
said, we talk
At some
about it
point
in
in time,
open
it's got to,
session.
but at some
Absolutely.
point in time, it's got to come to the board. One or two of us will meet with the family, we'll work things out, and then with staff, come back with it. But we're not going to have the beginnings of a discussion on this, or the middle of this in a meeting. We'll have the end of it all together. And there are ways that we can all talk without breaking the Open Meeting Act and discuss this. But I think Cal's right, now is not the time to have the initial conversation.
I mean, we appreciate them coming forward.
Absolutely.
And I would want to think that regardless, if you did come forward, that we would want to do something anyway.
Yes.
So I could tell you that as, again, the longest tenured board member, even if you didn't come here tonight, and even if you didn't, this was not on your radar screen, this is something that we as community members should have thought about ourselves, and we would probably think about whether it's the same thing you were thinking at this point, but we get it. And again, we are a community, and that's all I'm going to say.
Thank
So
you.
should we just coordinate with Liza going
Well,
forward?
yeah,
for the time being?
in the next few days, we'll figure it all out.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Corey.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you guys for the time.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Corey.
Thank you for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Liza, thank you.
Thanks, Corey.
Next on our agenda, excuse me, is Parks Foundation of Highland Park, Liza to present.
Do you want to take a?
You wanna take a couple
minutes break.
Let's take a
Yeah,
break.
Let's do that.
One of the foundation members is sick, so Susan,
Okay.
told me, so.
Did we do anything for Susan? I'm very uncomfortable with my
Personally think it should be.
Yeah, I don't know that we have. I mean, no, I don't think we did.
Just saying, she's not.
But Superman fan, there's, no. Yes, I know.
No, I
we've
think this
spoken
is,
about-
you guys
These
have
people
done a
reached
great
out to
effort.
us. This is the first that we've had in my lifetime here.
I'm
So-
interested, but I wouldn't want to step up.
Well, he might not want to, if he's so emotionally involved in something like that.
Terry, not for me. I'm speaking to you, and you're just standing, you're just listening, right? Okay?
La, la, la.
So,
We're in an open meeting.
so, Terry, is it open meeting? So here's the thing, we lost Superman Sam, be very careful with Cal. He's sleeping in return, and we can't get committed into something. We have like that.
I know.
We can't get committed.
That's what I wrote down on a piece of paper, that we should meet with the family.
Like this.
Because I've never done this before.
We need to stay.
Yeah,
We're
right now.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
just be very careful. This is very
That's
delicate.
fine.
This is our first child.
There's probably,
I know.
Which is why I'm.
Sure is.
Programs, we're talking about legacy.
It is. I'm in the sleeveless.
Going to turn it up once an opportunity. This would be perfect. We need major money.
No, I'm fine.
Would make sense. So I think we could go big, especially for something like this that is such a big deal. We do need West. We need a Westridge. We've been trying to find a new home for preschool. For all these classes. Literally at its best. We can't do that. Found
$250,000. This could be Alexis Weiss.
$250,000. This would be so huge.
The attorney will
Anything that gives you some sort of.
Cal, I wrote down on a note to Brian exactly what you said. Small group, perfect.
We'll figure it
Thank you.
out.
And I know that was tough. Yes, very tough.
Cal,
What?
that was precisely the right way.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be very, it is so raw for these people sitting here tonight.
Was
I mean,
that,
they just lost their child 2 months ago.
which, Cal,
Anything you say is going to be the wrong thing.
were they in back,
We should have
Liza?
thought of something. We lost.
Liza, where were
No, I'm just saying, okay, I was wrong saying that. I was probably wrong saying that. Yeah.
It sounds like we suck, and it's like we don't.
No, but-
We don't know how to handle it. It's
I
new.
don't understand. But my point is, okay, is that we, fuck. Why did you tell me I'm wrong?
Okay.
Why did you lose a
Let's
child?
move
You tell
on
me I'm
to-
wrong.
Again, we'll go back to the Parks Foundation of Highland Park. Liza will present.
So this evening, I have to look, there, I see. All right, so at any rate, as the board knows,
Float with us?
yeah, I'll get to them in just a second. So as the board knows, one of the initiatives from our Green Print Plan was to establish a Parks Foundation, and we actually incorporated in 2016. And I say that we had our first meeting on June 14, 2017, which is not exactly true, because to become incorporated, we had to have a meeting of staff members who were appointed to the board. But since that time, we actually now have 6 active, I say active because they all came to our first meeting, members of the Park Board, and we had invited them to come to the meeting
Parks
tonight.
Foundation.
Or, excuse me, the Parks Foundation. And so we had invited them to come to the meeting tonight to introduce themselves to you. And I'm happy to report that of our 6, we have 2 here. I see Jeremy Chasley and Hanya Fuchetto, who are both in the audience. Would you each just like take 30 seconds, introduce yourself, and just a snippet about your involvement with the Park District and the foundation? Not to put you on the spot, but it's,
yeah.
it,
Put you on the spot, but let's put you on the spot.
I figure you can handle it.
I think I can handle it. Good evening. Thanks for the invitation. I'm Hanya Fuchetto. I'm a Highland Park resident for a long time. I was a former employee of the Park District for several years. I'm an active user of the Recreation Center and a big proponent of SMILE. I work for North Shore University Health System, so I'm community relations for both Pembroke and Highland Park Hospital. And what draws me to the Park District is just their passion for wellness. And so we've been able to coordinate and collaborate screenings and information booths with the recreation center with the intent of promoting wellness. So when I was approached to consider joining the Park District Foundation Board, it was with the passion to be able to help people, particularly people in need. So I look forward to helping the board grow with active members and to actually, do some good things for the Park District.
It's pretty tough to follow.
Make something up.
You wouldn't know the difference. So I'm Jeremy Chaseley. I have been a Highland Park resident for 13 years. I have 3 children that are 12 and under who have all participated in the Park District, been part of the Park District. I myself, as a child, I came from a family that didn't have a lot of money. We spent a lot of time outside. A lot of the things that I was able to do were afforded to me because of the Park District that I grew up in. So when I was approached to participate as a Parks Foundation member, that's really what drew me, was really the community in itself and how we can bring more of the Park District's offerings to the entire community within Highland Park. I work for an insurance company, commercial insurance company, based in Schaumburg, and I manage large broker relationships on their behalf, on myself, but that's really it.
So, thank you both for coming tonight. So the foundation, the other members of the foundation include Bob Bernstein, no relation. And then Lori Hart, Susan Wagner, and Julie Whitsack. And I believe Susan was sick tonight.
She sends her regards.
Right. So at any rate, so the foundation is actually meeting again next week. And in your packet tonight is a copy of the memorandum of understanding between the Parks Foundation and the Park District of Highland Park. And basically, the MOU really defines the working relationship between the two entities. They are very separate entities, but their missions are similar, whereas the MOU really addresses first the mission of the Park District, and then it addresses the mission of the foundation. It is certainly not my intent to go through this memorandum with you tonight. I don't need to read it to you, but it really goes through, it defines operating procedures between the foundation and its ability to get money and how they're communicating, record keeping, bookkeeping, et cetera. It talks about documents, it talks about bonding and insurance, it talks about financial procedures, and then it also talks on the Park District's end about our accountability of the funds that are derived, financial commitments from the Park District, financial statements from the foundation, inspection of records, compliance, and I believe the last area is our designation of gifts, independent contractors, and the actual MOU. It's a 3-year agreement between the Park District and the foundation. So what we had done at the foundation meeting last week, similar to what I've just done, is sort of introduce this memo. And if you all want to take a look at it, if you have comments, questions, if you would just get them to me by the end of July, we will take the foundation comments at next week's meeting, bring all the comments together, and then bring it back to the Park District at the August workshop meeting. And hopefully, we would like to get this approved by both boards at the end of August.
I don't have a question about the MOU.
Okay.
It's about the attendance at the last meeting. There wasn't an additional person there that's not listed.
Actually, Jerry Kane was an original member of the foundation, but
Okay.
Jerry and I spoke after the last meeting, and unfortunately, Jerry has a lot going on in his life, and he has unfortunately had to withdraw.
Okay.
He commits his support to the Park District and, of course, the Parks Foundation, but he will not be with us. But as recently as today, we had communications with a woman who works at one of the banks who Hania referred us to, who we might be picking up. And I know Bob Bernstein has indicated he has a couple of people. So we're really starting to evolve. And so we'll provide reports to this board as the foundation moves along. But I think one of the things that we've really talked about as a goal for the foundation in year one is really awareness. You know, this is a new endeavor on the Park District's behalf, and the foundation is to really work on public awareness with the foundation. And then the one program that we have in place that we know is a proven winner is the SMILE program, and I think that's something that we would like to enhance in this first year with the Parks Foundation. So we're excited to actually have people with us, and we've got direction for year one. So at our next meeting, we'll also be electing officers of the foundation, and I do want to note that Terry Grossberg and Lori Flores-Weisskopf are the liaisons for the board in ex officio capacity, and then Liz, myself, and Annette are all representing as staff.
Any questions?
I just have a comment. I did want to thank Liz, Annette, and Liza and the staff for putting this together. It's a lot of work to become a 501c3, and it's a very diverse group. You know, Jeremy, you were on the phone, right, or with Terry? Okay, so we didn't know about you because we all went around and introduced. It's great that you have young children. We have some retired people. I mean, it's just a really, really wonderful group, and it's exciting the potential, Terry, of what it can become and what it can do for the Park District. And I know that I look very forward to, you know, just starting this up. There are a lot of people in need, and unfortunately, they tend to be looked over because Highland Park is such an affluent community, but there's middle class here, and there's a low income, and you know, in the end, it's about children having opportunities so they can have memories of Park District. You know, I myself was a camper on financial aid when I was a child, and I wasn't even aware of it, and that's what's important. But what I remember is camp, grass, swimming lessons, bus, you know, and then ultimately, you know, I returned to be a camp counselor and then a parent, and then here I am. So it really is something, you know, aid and grants, you know, it really is something that pays you back, the organization in the end, because there's a loyalty, there's a very special connection to, you know, to something like that. So I'm really, really excited about it, really, really. So thank you for volunteering. Did we have any people who offered to be president who threw their name in the?
I've had discussions with one, but nothing official yet.
They're all completely and absolutely beyond competent and very bright, and I'm certain we're going to do some really great things together.
Barney? No, go ahead. I have a question. Is the Parks Foundation of Highland Park going to just be raising funds for programs like SMILE, or are they going to be raising funds for other parts and portions of the Park District?
Absolutely.
Okay, and do we want to get them involved with the Weiss family at some point in time as talks go on?
No, let's keep them separate.
Yeah.
The only reason I think there is synergy there, but I think it's going to take us a while to get going.
Okay, no, and
I don't think it's going to meet their timeline, honestly.
All right, and I didn't mean immediately, but at some point
Yeah.
in time. All right.
And quite honestly, you know, with the Weiss project, I don't think that's financial is going to be the issue there. You know, where I think with our foundation, we're really looking to fund things that we need and to provide.
Well, that's why I
aid.
asked my first question, was this raising money to fund things, or is it going to be a more general?
Well, I think right now the goal is SMILE to start there, and then, you know, once it grows, once the board grows, once we're more visible, you know, it'll turn into bigger projects in the future. That's the excitement of the potential.
Anybody else? That was my question. Okay. Next, we have park operations, golf operations, construction update with Amalia Schwartz, who last night faced the Kennedy Playground people with a smile on her face and did a wonderful job.
Good evening. Okay, so I have some images to start off with to give you an update of where we are.
Can you give me 1 minute to minimize this? Okay, thank you.
Okay. So the last time we spoke, we were talking about getting ready for installation of the aggregate piers. So we have now completed the installation of the aggregate piers, and just to give you a little background on what that is, it's because the soil at this site is not ideal for a building. We had to stabilize the soil, and the way we did that was installing these aggregate piers. So what they did was they brought this machine in, and I have a video to show you a little bit of what that looks like, but they puncture the ground and they fill it with aggregate stone. So they're just big columns of aggregate stone underground that are stabilizing the soil, and the foundation will go on top of that, and the footings, and then the building. So that helps to stabilize the soil. So this giant machine was there. Let's see if I can get this video to work.
My kid would have loved this about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It's a PDF. Okay,
Fun-
we don't have a video.
2 years
I can send it to Liza, and Liza can send it out to you guys so you can see it. But it was a neat process. I think a new process that we haven't. It's a unique process, and it was cool to see. So
It's what you need to do when you build in the side of an incinerator pit,
Yes. So it was completed successfully, and we are moving on to the installation of the retaining wall, which is holding back that. It looks like a big piece of cake got cut out of this site, so it's going to hold back the soil for where the building is going to go.
Is this looking west?
This is looking north, so
Oh,
you
it
can
is north. I got
Can
it.
you
Got
see
it.
Hidden Creek? the
Yeah,
little
you can see the
umbrellas up
Hidden
top?
Creek up here.
Oh.
So the retaining wall is right here where my cursor is. This is their wire baskets that are filled with aggregate. And then there are also these, they look like, let's see if my next picture, these rolls right here. They're like plastic, these like plastic fabric that can hold a lot of tensile strength. All new words for me. But they are going to hold the building up and hold the soil back. So we are making sure that the site will be able to accommodate the building. So this is the step before installation of the footings. After the footings comes the precast walls. So that's the fun, exciting part where they're going to erect the walls and it'll be a building. Moving on to the financial report, a little bit different from last time. We started construction, so you'll see some construction costs. We had $29,500 in contingency. That was for the asbestos abatement. And just to touch on the contingency, we talked about it a little bit. Because of this interesting contract, the board approved the estimated maximum price. The contingency is built into that estimated maximum price. So at the time that we go beyond that, that would be when a change order would come to the board. But at this time, we are still under our estimated maximum price. So it just wasn't. It's getting taken out of that miscellaneous pot of money that we've budgeted for. And then moving on to schedule, we're still we're a little off, but we're still on track to finishing up end of January, early February, and we are estimated to start the construction of the building in mid-August.
That's great. What's the expected move-in date?
I think it's February 6th right now, which moves. So right now, the last report that I had given to you, it was a few weeks earlier. We had a little bit of a delay because some schedule shifting around, and we need to order some materials. So the exact dates do shift, but we do still expect to move in that kind of January, February time frame.
Is the rain wreaking havoc on the schedule of this?
Not as
No,
much,
it's wreaking havoc
not
with
as
your
much
schedule.
as the golf course, as what I'm being told. The rain didn't really impact they're working. They worked
Okay,
all
good.
of yesterday, so No, I don't think so. And we are working on trying to get back to where we were in terms of the schedule.
What's the date? When will we demolish the old building?
We will demolish the old building at the completion of this project. So once the staff moves in, then at that point, the building will be demolished. So if you look at the schedule, everything happens, and then at the very, very end is when the Parks building gets demolished.
Is that a week process to take it down, or more, or less?
The demolition of the golf building took about a week. So I would think it would be a week to 2 weeks because it's a larger building. Any other questions?
You got two.
Sure.
And I don't remember the answer, that's why I'm asking the question. Is within the budget, is it the demolition of the existing park maintenance building?
Yes.
So it's in this budget, it's not in the Sunset Valley
No,
budget?
it's in this budget.
And the second, have you had any concerns from the neighbors or any feedback from the neighbors, especially with the pile driving of that using that machine?
No, not for this project. We have not gotten any.
No neighbor complaints?
Nope.
That's good. We have any ongoing neighbor dialogue? Let them know keeping them informed what's going on with the project?
We sent them a letter, I think we've sent them a couple of letters now, but they all know that we keep the project updates on our website.
Okay, if they're anticipating any loud construction work, it'd be a good idea
Yeah.
to probably notify them beforehand.
We will.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's good.
Okay.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amalia.
She got the easy one.
Yeah, but this
Hey,
is always,
we're early.
this is always the fun presenter. Sunset Valley Golf Course renovation project. It's like having our child talk about a lollipop. Brian.
Okay. So just to give you a brief history since we last met, we've had a lot of rain that's came down at the course. Probably the last 2.5 weeks have been 4 inches of rain. We had an inch on Monday. We had close to 2 to 3 inches on June 29th. And then the day before the 4th of July, we had half an inch that came down real quick in the morning. So we are probably a couple weeks behind schedule, which puts us at the end of September to finish up, which is okay because anticipated opening is still July of 2018. When I'm pretty confident that we'll still open sometime in July of 2018. But I want to make sure we get all that seed in the ground, so we have a good fall to grow that in and get as much grown in this fall. But we do have 500,000 square feet of sod coming this fall. Yeah, and just to kind of put the math in your head, that's 771 pallets of sod.
Wow.
So that's 42 pallets of sod per hole. So they have to put the sod down before they seed. So think of a green complex, think of the bunkers in the fairway, think of the tees. All those areas will be sodded around. So it's going to look like a brand new golf hole instantly almost, except for like the fairways and greens and tees that will be seeded. So we do have a healthy sod budget, and that's going to help with erosion control and getting that seed established in the fairways. So I wanted to show you guys, this is 15 green before. This was taken on September 1st of 2016. So you can kind of see how small and just round the green is. We got the humps in the back.
Pretty nice for me.
And then this is the new greens. So it's a little bit bigger, more undulation. This is a USGA green. All the drainage that goes down the middle, off to the sides, there's smile drains on the low areas on the sides where it flows off to the approach or the collection areas.
So how much above that is the actual playing surface going to be then?
That will be 16 inches above that.
Got it.
So next you'll have
Bless you.
your gravel layer that comes in. That's spread over the drainage and then over the entire surface. And then the next is the USGA greens mix. So we had that tested prior, and then we also had it tested before they delivered it, just to make sure it was USGA spec that they were delivering. And that's like a 92% sand, 8% reed sedge peat mix. Infiltration rate was in accordance with the USGA, so we're all good there. That'll get spread out, and then the topsoil, there was kind of an odor coming from our topsoil spoils on Saturday, but that was spread Saturday around the greens. And then irrigation will be installed tomorrow around this green, and then once they're ready to seed it, they'll have to sod around the whole green complex, and then the seed goes on the greens mix. And then we'll just grow that in. And then hopefully within, I'm thinking 3 weeks, will be the first time we mow it.
Wow.
Yeah, so we'll start mowing like a quarter of an inch, and then we'll slowly take that down to like a tenth of an inch. We want to mow it probably about 130, 150 going into of an inch. Going into winter, then we'll top dress it and just protect the crown of the plant heading into winter. But you'll be able to, I'm hoping by Halloween you'll be able to come out and do some punting on it.
It's like a chia pet. It's like a chia pet.
As much fertilizer as we're going to put on these, they'll grow really, really
I
fast.
think Cal referred to it as a chia pet.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
Okay.
Was the first slide you showed us,
Yes, sir.
right there?
This
Okay,
is
I'm
this
sorry,
is
second-
taken.
Yeah, this is what I thought it was going. This looks great. Next slide. So the vertical, the horizontal lines that are cutting through here. That's the drainage. Is that the drainage system that we installed?
Yes, sir.
So all the water then, the end result will go into these drain tiles.
Correct.
That will then run off. That's one of the key significant factors of how this is being done to
Yep.
make them playable
Yeah.
in drainage.
So like after, like just say yesterday, an inch of rain we had, they'll be just as firm as whether you didn't get any rain. That's the key.
Can you go forward a little bit?
Yep.
So, next one. So then, who is the architect that actually shapes the moguls, or you know?
So yeah, so we have a shaper. We have 3 shapers right now on site that do all the shaping. And then once Rick Jacobson, our golf course architect, he comes out and he'll approve it once he likes it. They meet all the slopes that they have a sheet what they look at that Rick gives them that has all the percentage slopes. That's all GPSed, and then they shape it with their bulldozer. And then they come back in with like a little skid steer and then do the finer shaping.
So-
But then once it's finished, Rick approves it.
Yeah. So is it? I guess I'm looking for the creativity of this, and then before I was on the board, was there ever a sort of a idea that let's make this hole more difficult? Let's make this like what?
That's a great question. So the whole concept is more of an old school Donald Ross type of greens. So Rick looked at some old Donald Ross, and Donald Ross came through Highland Park. Him and Harry Cole built Old Elm. They did Skokie Country Club. They wanted to do more.
Northmore, too.
Northmore. They wanted to do more of an old school Donald Ross feel to these greens. So they're more, some of the areas have more of a square type. But Rick also has his own flair
So
to him.
To answer your question, Chair, in the Golf Advisory Committee, we went hole by hole by hole with the group there, with Rick there,
Yep.
and it was a long, drawn-out process. So we just didn't give blank slate to the architect. He guided our conversation. There was some input from the members of the committee, but I would say the vast majority of it is the artist is Rick Jacobson. It's not us individually.
Correct.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
He's going to put his signature in the corner.
Rick came here,
Yeah.
how he
Yeah.
would change every hole. It was fascinating. And
I wish I was on the board then.
And one thing we're going to do,
considerations we picked and chose what to do and what not to do.
That's so
correct. One thing we're going to do that's a little differently, and you won't see it at any other municipality. You'll see it at some private clubs. Is we're not going to have a green collar anymore. So we're just going to do the green is going to go all the way to the bluegrass. So it's going to be one giant green surface, and then there's not going to be any other collar around the green. It's just going to be green to bluegrass rough. You'll see that Bobolink's got that. Knollwood has that. The Glen Club has that, or Glen View Club, not Glen Club. Some of that, it's just less maintenance cost. You don't have that extra guy going around to mow the collar. So it's less of a cost associated with that, which is going to be very, very neat.
Did you put the picture in of the rain?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
coming. We're off track a
Lori
little
had
bit.
Question, oh,
Did
sorry.
that drone go through yet?
Yeah, and we're working to get that. It's been through twice, but we're just the editing and trying to get it situated
Or you had a
to put that out.
Well, you know, Barney, are you a golfer?
No.
Okay, so as one of two non-golfers,
Yep.
I was expecting to see that first picture and then something gorgeous and stunning. So
Yeah.
it kind of threw me a little bit. I'm like, well, what do we do?
Well, if you
But
go out there right now, there's nothing
but
really
it is-
gorgeous. And
but I can appreciate,
Yeah.
without even being a golfer, now understanding, you know, you know, what's going on behind the scenes, literally
Yeah.
underground.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I want to know is, I don't even know how to ask it because I don't know the terminology, but Barney, do you have anything?
Amalia learned some new words.
I
Amalia
think-
leave?
Okay.
Yeah.
Getting back to what Terry asked and what Brian and Cal were explaining, the course, we showed the first picture.
Yep.
Was designed 50 years ago.
yeah, more.
More than 50 years ago. I'm just generalizing.
90.
90 years ago, to be precise.
Yeah.
The,
Embellishing a little bit.
the Golf
Was it 19?
Advisory Committee.
Sorry.
A
Listen.
long time
Sorry,
ago, when
Barney.
they designed the course, it was for a different standard. This course is now designed to USGA.
Yeah, and it also is. It has the drainage capabilities to be maintained at a high level.
And we're sensitive, very sensitive to the fact that it's a water retention area.
Right.
Yep.
And the golf advisory committees, as they said, had multiple illustrations from Jacobson
Yep.
to show the undulations, to show with computer animations. And not being a golfer, when I looked at it as a non-golfer,
Yeah.
I realized that we were designing, I shouldn't say we, but more collectively, coming up with a gorgeous product. It's going to be one of those vistas that you can stand at the clubhouse and look out,
Right.
and you're going to be very proud of
Yeah.
what the result is. You know, now it's a field of mud.
Yes.
And was that getting towards what you were
Yeah,
saying?
so,
Yeah.
thank you, Barney. So, what's it going to look like? I mean,
Well, I can answer.
No, that's-
For
The
future.
Golf Advisory Committee
Right.
had renderings
It's at
Well,
the
that was
Highland
my-
Park Country Club.
That's my
that showed it.
So that's,
well,
so that's
that's
my
true.
question. Maybe the next time we get an update for someone, you know, I'd say, oh, okay, because quite honestly, that first one looked great to me. You know, so what do I know? So
It did
you know,
look good.
I really hope that we'll have. I can give you pictures of what like the grass types we're gonna have
No, it's
that
okay.
look like.
Don't go to
but
trouble.
we really
I
don't.
just mean the rendering. or
Until
some-
it's
something.
Done.
You're not
Nothing to
going to
see.
really be able to
Okay.
appreciate
Yeah.
it. And the other thing that I will say is when it's done, you're going to say, this is nice. 2 years from now, when it's grown
Man.
more, like you see the grasses at Rosewood and the flowers on the bluff starting to come out at Rosewood.
Yep.
2 years from now, you're going to say, wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
So
did that
it
Ryan
won't
do a
be
great job.
an out of the gate wow. It'll be a
Yeah.
wow. But then it'll be
We just need the rain
the
to
wow
stop
will
for a
get
little
bigger.
while.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask just a follow-up on that? So, in the group's decision, decision-making, did you make the course, these are questions that are coming to me, that's why
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
asking. Did you make it fundamentally more difficult? Like, are we going to be able to attract not just players that can play from the blacks?
Yep.
But is it hard? Is it a more difficult course for people playing from the whites or the yellows?
It
or the
is.
reds?
It is. It is going to be a fun course for everybody. It's going to be. It's going to be.
Let me answer.
Yeah.
the
Go.
question. I mean, we spent months talking about this. It's going to be harder and it's going to be easier. That's the way to explain it, because what we've done is that we designed the course to be challenging to the low handicap golfers by adding an additional yardage, adding an additional set of cheese. What we did for the high handicap golfers like myself, who are not very good, is what we've done is that we've created larger targets to shoot it for the greens. Because one of the things about Sunset is that the pre-existing, the old Sunset, it was around the green, it was very penal in nature. What I mean is that if you don't hit the green, there was long grass around, there was rough all around every one of the greens, which made that short chip, which is for not a good golfer, it's a misery chip. And so what they've done is that they've created a green complex, but they've also have a bailout area.
Correct.
And every single hole has a bailout. So instead of having a smaller target, that if you don't get on that target, you're lack of a better word, you're screwed. You're going to have that small chip. Now you're going to have that bigger target where you can putt from which is not technically the green, but it's a bailout area. That being said, that's for the people, so that, you know, Liza and I have had this discussion. One of the things that we were, you know, most concerned about, we want to make sure that this is a golf course that everyone can use, that no one will be intimidated to play it.
Right.
Because if you play from the correct set of tees, and that's the whole USGA thing, is playing forward, play from the tees that are appropriate for your ability, you should be able to enjoy this. This should be one of the most enjoyable golf experiences on the entire North Shore. So, but if you're not a good golfer and you're playing from the tips, you're going to have some issues. And the other thing is that one of the other things, as Jacobson explained through the entire process, is that we have, since it's in a floodplain / floodway area, that we have some significant water issues on this. I.e., when you hit a drive and your second shot, a lot of times that second shot's in a low area. And what Jacobson's done when they redesigned the courses is that where people are normally going to put their shots, they've raised the elevation so those areas are drier. So you're not hitting in low areas with wet. So we have a course that's been designed in the 1920s. We had 15 out of the 18 greens did not meet the USGA specifications. And so what we did is, and in addition, we have now these new hybrid grasses that are going to be better to withstand drought and also heavy rains and disease. And so the playability. So, you know, in Rob's here, when you have a significant rain, that course could be closed for 3 days.
Yeah.
The whole idea behind this is not. I mean, I played in a charity outing at Northmore yesterday. You had a huge amount of rain. That course was playable within an hour, because it had a proper drainage system, which we didn't really have, because our course was so old and the infrastructure was so antiquated that we would have been closed for 2 days after a rain like that. Now we're going to be able to be open. It's going to create a better golfing experience for our public, and it's also going to be better for our bottom line, is because it's going to be cheaper to operate, and it's going to be able to operate under more duress.
I'm sold.
Well,
That was really well stated.
And
I've been through this last year. I've said that about 100 times.
Terry, seriously, as a non-golfer, when the golf advisory committees were meeting, and Cal summarized it in very, very well, there were questions that were coming up from non-golfers about, in simple words, what will happen? What about the people who go out and play golf once a year? And all of these were concerns, and they were, I think, as Cal just told us, but it was very adequately and comfortably directed and addressed so that as a non-golfer, I felt that we were doing a really wonderful thing for the community.
Well, I feel caught up.
Yeah,
That's basically where
Yeah.
I mean, I think the biggest struggle we had in the Golf Advisory Committee, and Liza remembers these discussion, is that it was really the red tees, which formerly were known as the women's tees, the ladies' tees, is that there was a lot of dispute how long to make those tees. And that was really, I think everything else kind of fell into line, and there was a lot of dispute on exactly from how long to make the course from the red tees, and I think we reached a good compromise with that. But that was probably, or maybe not. But
Yeah, no,
I've
you
seen
know
you
what?
golf.
Yeah.
I have no worries.
But the thing of it is that you have 5 sets of tees.
Yeah.
So the first 2 sets of tees should satisfy all the people that were having the debates over the red tees.
Yes.
I think. But
So
we'll
that's,
see.
so it's really, one of the things is going to be an educational thing to make sure that people play from the correct set of tees.
And you're going to
Huge.
increase the size of the hole.
No, the hole stays the same.
Yeah.
Can't do that. I don't think the USGA's changed specs on the size of the hole yet.
Ryan. Hoping.
It's,
We'll put the bigger ones out there.
You know what? The par 3 at Winnetka has really big frisbee size.
I'm telling you.
They do. You have that.
Alternate hole.
Yeah, you can
What do you have
put
the
those.
soccer balls out there, Rob? Right, you have the soccer balls on the Sunday.
The foot golf, yeah.
Saturday night foot golf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Terry, 2 things. You can get the book from Liza, or the drawings
That'd be
from
exciting.
Jacobson.
Yeah.
So the one you showed us.
Yeah, yeah, you can see-
Undulations on it.
And these pictures don't do it justice, because you really got to get out there and walk in the green to really understand, because you can't see the movement.
And we're ready to.
Whenever you guys are ready.
When you guys want to go see it, we'll take you, because now you can really appreciate what's been done.
But don't be scared. It's
Not
still a muddy mess.
Not me. I don't think
Yeah,
I should go out
it's
there.
just a lot of
Panic
dirt.
me, yeah.
You know
But
what?
it's cool.
You will appreciate, I mean, it's the whole experience. We're not talking about the clubhouse today, but we're redoing the clubhouse.
Yeah.
So when people walk up, it will be a
Yep.
whole new experience.
No
Just by
longer,
taking down a bunch
no
of trees.
longer 1313 Mockingbird Lane. Anybody get that reference?
All right.
Once-
Ryan, do you have any more?
Yeah. So yeah. Sorry. So here is the flooding from June 29th. So this picture is taking the front of number 1T looking out 7 fairway all the way across 10. So when the water, we received a little over 2 inches of rain, but Old Elm, just north of us, had 3.5 inches. So all that water came down, and this is where it floods. But luckily, it receded within 24 hours. But the drainage is not in these areas yet, and the cuts haven't been made. So when it does rain significantly, we're in a floodplain. We're still going to flood. It's how quickly we can move that water off the playing surfaces. I think that's one thing I want to reiterate is we're still going to flood because there's no way around that because we're still in a floodplain, but it's how quickly can we move that water off the playing surfaces.
And why that's very important is because on a hot August day, the longer the grass is under the water, is the more that it will kill the grass.
Correct.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
see that Old Elm drains on our property?
No, it comes
No,
from the Skokie Canal.
comes from the
river.
canal.
What-
Yeah.
Goes from north to south, the water.
But they've been having issues up in Waukegan, right? Isn't that what we learned?
All along. We learned, through this entire stormwater management process, we've learned that it really, the water migrates north to south, and there's been discussions, that's part of it was some of the damming that's been done further downstream, and the city's had issues in the Centennial area with a
Right.
lot of flooding over the years, and they've pointed the fingers basically at the Botanic Gardens for some of the damming that's been done on the, we used to call it the sewage canal, but now it's called the Skokie River. It's changed its name over the years. But that river it's some damming down south of Highland Park that causes it to back up.
So this is what happens when we get a significant rain, and this is what we cannot have happen when the seed is in the ground.
Yes, we talked about
Yeah. This is the drainage. On Saturday, they were putting the drainage in on 10 Fairway. And just to report, that pocket of water was gone after that 1 inch of rain on Monday, when that drainage was in. That pocket of water was gone. So that's a good sight to see because after an inch, Rob knows, after an inch of rain, 10 Fairway's wet for a couple days.
Yeah.
And they're making the cuts around 11 Green right here. The backside 11 Green is going to be built up a little bit so you can kind of see it visually better from the tee box. So that's the cuts going in around there.
But I still have to hit over water to get to 11, right?
Just a little canal.
I own that
But
little
it's a
canal.
big target.
Yeah, it's a big target. And that's pretty much it. And then whenever you guys are ready to come out, we're ready.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next is the Recreation Center of Highland Park construction update with Brian Romes and Mitch Carr, our new Assistant Director of Recreation and Facilities.
He's not paying any attention.
I'm sorry,
to
what
you.
was that?
I said, and Mitch Carr, our new Director of, Assistant Director, sorry to the Director, of Recreation and Facilities. Congratulations.
Thank you. All right, good evening. So Mitch and I are very excited to share with you what we've had the opportunity to share with all of our members at the Recreation Center, and that is the opening of Phase 1 in the lower level, our new group exercise studio. This is a picture of it. It's kind of a panoramic view here. If you haven't had an opportunity to go down there, it's I think very spectacular looking.
It's stunning.
And so as you can see here, the new bamboo floors. To the left, you can see the additional window, which adds the additional sunlight as well as increased exterior views there. The ceiling clouds there. The sound system is tremendous. A lot of compliments regarding that. And it's just great to see after a long, almost 3 months, be able to see all of our members take advantage of it. So that opened on June 26th. And I just want to also give a lot of credit to Mitch and his team at the rec center, because they really manage the day-to-day operations during the construction with Buller Construction, and having doing a major renovation project with all the members that come in there. It can be pretty chaotic, and they literally have been working around the clock, literally all the way 24/7. So it's been quite a process to get through this renovation. But phase one, just to kind of review here, substantial completion was on June 26th, which really meant that we were able to get our occupancy. There is a final punch list, so the lower level is not 100% done. There are some minor things that still have to be kind of fixed. So there's some minor painting. There's a light can that has a dent in it they need to replace, things like that. So all probably things that nobody notices right now, but that'll all be fixed before, obviously, Buller Construction leaves the site at the end of August, beginning of September. So that punch list, we're looking at that week to week, and whenever they're able to get in there, make those improvements, they do so. The Queenex, you can see in the picture right here, when we opened the facility, Mitch and the rec center team put on a really nice kind of grand opening with a bunch of demo classes for the Queenex equipment, doing some classes with that equipment, as well as some tours of the new group exercise studio. And since it's open, now the full schedule is kind of in place. And down there in the group exercise studio, and personal trainers are taking advantage of it. And I think Mitch can attest, there's been a lot of positive feedback from the members.
Yeah, definitely a lot of positive feedback, and we did kind of do this open house as more of a slow transition for one day to get all members, even if you're not a member who takes a lot of group exercise classes, just to get down and see what the final product is, because we knew obviously the next day we're going to start some demolition upstairs, which Brian will go through. So we wanted to have an opportunity for members that maybe primarily use the fitness floor, see a finished product component. As Brian said, we had a lot of great feedback. We took the next day as our first full day down in the studio. So the 27th was the first full day in the studio, so that we could start the demolition upstairs. The Queenex machine itself, that's something. It's a great piece of equipment. We've used it quite vastly already, but I think we mentioned before in a previous meeting, we got all of our trainers and a quite large group of group exercise instructors trained on how to utilize the piece to its fullest capacity. At this moment, at the end of July through August, before we get to shut down, we're going to be trying some demo classes. I think we're going to call it something like Queenex Boost, like an entry level and a more advanced level, to kind of gauge how well people are interacting with it, so that we can build those types of classes into the fall schedule. So you don't really see Queenex per se on the summer schedule, because we want to implement it in a little bit different fashion through some more promotional classes to get member feedback before we do the full run of it.
So keep forging ahead, and we're obviously not done yet. So phase two, it's kind of in two phases in itself. So first there was the offices and the lockers to the left here. So we've had this temporary wall up here for the past, since April 17th. If you were to go there today, you could actually see this temporary wall has mostly been removed on this side, and you can see these offices are done, all the drywall, all the paint, all the glazing. This glass is actually in there now. There's a new door for the training supervisor's office. It's a glass door as well. It looks really nice. Obviously, it's behind plastic, so you can't really see it completely, but you can tell that it's been completed. These lockers will come last. There's a lot of millwork that has to be done, and that'll be done when the front desk is also completed. So what's happened over here in the training studio is now you would see a new construction wall that goes all the way around where the group exercise studio was, and they've now demoed everything in there. So all the walls were taken down, the floor has been removed, and they are ready to move forward with this phase. So the framing actually has been started, and it should be completed this week. The framing for which all this glazing will go in, and then all the way around all of this glass, and then where this new office will be as well. Now the floor, so the floor is actually, when we constructed the building, it's actually recessed about 2.5 inches where the wood floor was for that group exercise studio. So what's going to happen later this week is they have to fill that in, and then level it off before they move any further. So that'll happen this week, and then they'll finish all the framing this week. And eventually, we'll get to the drywall. And it's this phase, we're really happy because we didn't see all the things that came up with the first phase that kind of set us back. There weren't a lot of surprises when we took down the walls. So we anticipate we're going to move pretty quickly. This is just the pictures that we took today. On the left, this is standing out by the ellipticals, looking at the front desk. So over here to the right, this is that new office with the glass windows. And to the left over here, this is that new construction wall. New coat rack there for our members. But this is what it looks like today. And then over to the right here, this is me actually. I'm standing where the new expanded fitness floor will be, looking at the new training studio. So you can see all the framing is really almost complete, and this is where all the glazing will go and wrap around. So progress.
The ledge. So
Oh
you can
yeah,
see where
and
that
then
has to be filled
right
in.
here is where it goes down about 2.5 inches, and they have to fill that in. So. From a financial standpoint, in the month of June, you can see with Bowler Construction, we're a little more than halfway through the project, so our expenses reflect that. Soft costs, we've paid for most of the equipment, and that goes along with this project. Our contingency, we have actually eaten into that a little bit, and that'll show next month. We've had quite a few change orders go through, but they have had minimal effect, and we still fully anticipate that we are going to finish this project under budget. So, from
great.
a timeline perspective, completion of Phase 1, it is open to the public. Phase 2 began April 17th, with the remaining part of Phase 2 June 26th. So the facility closure still on schedule to close for about 2 weeks. First week will be full facility, second week will be partial facility, and then grand opening looking at September 1st.
All right. I have one question.
Sure.
Two. Rave reviews from everybody who's seen it. The only thing I've heard is that in the weight room it's getting hotter because the venting isn't there. And on one of the days, I saw that the sheeting was kind of peeled back, which helped, but then it was closed up the next day. Are we going to do anything, or can we do anything to vent that weight area any more than it is?
Yeah, so I believe, and I'm not sure if we've had continued complaints over the last few days about it, but during the demolition phase, if you remember, there were 2 thermostats on the wall that got demolished. The top thermostat, which controls that area, did get damaged in the demolition, but it's been now repaired. So it should now hopefully cool that area like it was getting before.
Right.
But if there's still concerns, we certainly can try to feed more air into there.
I assume that's why you vented.
That was on the day that we couldn't figure
Okay.
out why that unit wasn't kicking on.
Got
But the wire that runs to that unit, we found got damaged during the
All right.
demolition, and it's been repaired.
Any hiccups in the new room yet?
I don't think so. I mean,
Very minor.
yeah, I would say
Nothing they want to share.
I want to
You
hear him
mean-
say no.
no, we haven't. I mean,
Nothing that's costing us any more
No,
money or
that's
anything
true.
like that.
That's true.
Or delaying us.
a lot of it's programming. Like, people want to be in that space,
Right.
and so that's great. That's
That's a
a
good
good thing. And so, for example, a lot of our trainers want to get into that space when it's not being utilized and trying to manage that, and then knowing that there'll be a new space available in 6 to 8 weeks that will have a Queenex, a wall Queenex unit. So they really like the Queenex and the capabilities. I think the cool thing about the Queenex is that for a trainer, group exercise instructor, it allows them to be even more creative than they already are. So.
When you say a wall Queenex, is it going to be the same jungle gym feeling where it'll go across the room?
No, it'll have a lot of the same functional capacity, but it's going to be on the wall itself. So
But nothing on the ceiling?
no.
Okay.
I didn't. I didn't go to the room during the construction, so my observations are actually using the room. I found that the temperature works good in there. The bamboo, it's bamboo floor, right? The bamboo floor is outstanding. It's very easy on the knees. It's very easy on the legs. The sound system sounds great in there. The western exposure, even with the sun setting, because I took a late afternoon class, it didn't heat up the room. So I think whatever you've done with regard to the HVAC has worked real well. And I was also impressed. One of the biggest complaints I've seen at the rec center is the lack of storage. And you were able to work storage into the design because you have actually a roomy storage room right there. And I think that's going to go a long way to try to address that. The two questions I have, and I don't remember, is you have that mobile check-in. I just want to know, get any feedback on how that's working, and does that increase your costs at all by having additional employees down there? How is that working?
So the nice thing right now at the rec center is we're pretty much fully staffed. Sometimes we've had some staffing challenges, but right now we are fully staffed, and we're able to take one of our desk staff from the front desk area down for the 15 minutes to check people in. It helps also with just even some room setup. And I think it's almost more welcoming face that they get to check in right there at the studio with the staff member, and it helps also, I think, control access and make sure we have accurate counts on classes.
So in the old room, you used to walk in and you had the coat rack there, you had a place to put your shoes and put your purse, your phone, whatever along there. Now with the new room, I noticed that you have that in the hallway. And it's not as private, obviously. You know, you go up and do some laps in your class or something. There's really no one monitoring that. Do you anticipate any issues with that? In addition, is there going to be a coat rack down there where people can put their coats because they'll go directly to the group exercise rooms?
It's a really good question, and actually, one of our solutions to that is that the lockers that were upstairs. You know that we've kept some of them, and so that. When those lockers, we no longer need them because we'll have these brand new 60 lockers. We're going to take those lockers, we're going to take them downstairs so that people can actually lock their stuff up outside of the room. And then we're adding one more coat up to the other side, so that if somebody doesn't want to use the locker, they just want to hang their jacket up, they can still do that. But the thought behind it was, if we take those cubbies and put the cubbies in the room, it takes up a square foot. From potentially one patron being able to use the area. So using those lockers and repurposing those lockers, which are still in good working order, downstairs will give security and storage capability.
Those are my only questions.
Lori?
I guess now that the room is coming together, what's it called, the training, personal training room, is the goal there for trainers and their
Clients.
clients to not have to leave that room?
No.
But is that possible? We are saying this machine that there's really not necessarily a need, or
So
what do we? Yeah.
Yeah, it would really be up to the trainer. So you may have a trainer who has a client that they want to really stay in that room the whole time because the equipment in that room is going to meet the needs of that whole 30-minute or hour session. But the reality is probably the majority of the trainers may use components of that room, but they may also then leave the room and go back and forth. Because it's 600 square feet, there's only so much equipment that's going to go in there. And a lot of it would be very specialized equipment, but they may want to walk right out into the free weight area and do some free weight exercise, or over to some of the new strength line that's going to come in. So it'll give them versatility to be able to do both.
Okay. Are there free weights in that room? Because from the diagram, it looked like you had some. The photo.
In the training studio, there'll be some limited free weights, and right outside will be the full free weight area too. Yeah.
I'm sorry, we have a door directly into the free weight area, don't we?
Yeah.
So it's not just so the door is
okay.
where there's a mirror now.
Right. So they'll be able to access the fitness floor. Right, back and forth here.
Okay, I see. All right.
Jerry?
No.
Any other questions? All right, thanks, guys.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we call up Annette, do you guys mind if we take a 2-minute break?
Yeah, it's fine. It's a long meeting tonight.
Thank you. Quick recess.
You called it a recess. We're having a recess.
Bless you.
Recess break, whatever you want to call it.
It's killing me. Vent.
Good night. Thank you.
Hey, Rob.
Nice job.
Thanks, everyone.
Ryan, what happened?
I had to get a little piece of skin cancer.
Oh, I was
He
thinking that
joined,
you
he
were.
joined the club with Liza and I.
No, I just thought, you wait.
I wish.
Some kid hits you or something.
See ya.
Bye, Ryan.
Yeah, go.
See ya.
It'll be ready.
Dan. Maybe I'll just feed Duffy right now. Do you want me to go?
No, you have to be here in case we start, and I have to be here in case we start.
Am I supposed to be recording these breaks?
What?
Am I supposed to be recording these breaks?
Just,
I just put 5-minute break after.
yeah, that'd be great.
And-
There's just such a draft right there. Mrs. B, I have your container.
Is there any way to turn the air conditioner?
I think we're doing that right now.
Okay, because I'm turning into an icicle.
I know.
Very good, all in white.
I have your container cleaned and ready for you.
New diffuser. We can afford a new diffuser.
Beautiful. Do you have
Oh,
tomatoes?
your garden here.
Yeah, I want to steal some. They look wonderful.
They can't be ready yet. I haven't looked closely.
Well, I mean, they're going to be.
They're really.
I mean, it's going to be.
I know. I'm waiting for the pesto sauce next.
It's a jungle, veritable jungle. And it's so wonderful. I go out there and I think, well, what are you going to plant?
There's no home garden now.
No, my stuff.
Because it's boring and nobody really wants to hear it.
Perfect.
Because it's so boring and everything, and then the good stuff is because now I just feel like we're going over a cliff.
Perfect.
Because now I just think it's any message. This won't be. I'm talking about my other stuff. The TIF stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. That makes sense. I have not taken any notes, I just realized.
More fun looking at Ryan's pictures of that golf course.
All the questions that they've been asking,
You'll have to wait.
I stopped.
In regard, I mean about these reports. Well, it's nothing that hasn't been answered. Nothing that we have to. I always write those that we didn't answer, and we have to get back to them. And I don't have anything. Cal gave an amazing overview.
Yeah, that was great.
Hi, Barney.
Still have.
Did you get ice cream?
Good.
How many times? Twice?
You've been busy.
Just twice. What was your flavor?
Here.
You're
My
here, there.
office is not in the footpath.
Ooh,
If you're coming
blueberry.
in, I'm
Oh,
done. Yeah.
man.
You gotta come find me. You gotta hunt me down.
Well,
So,
I have to say, I don't actually hang out around
Yeah.
here that often, so. Let's go.
but yeah.
Right.
And you know what? That's okay with me. That I'm kind of off the beaten path
Right.
a little bit. Yeah.
Where'd Cal go?
He's out there.
Okay, let's get started. Can't give me Diet Coke and water before a meeting. I'm too old.
Sorry.
Are we ready for the boring stuff?
We're ready for the boring stuff.
I can't share a card.
I'm gonna sit down and
Share a card
get
up there.
everybody's way. Am I one right after you?
Fight over who drives.
Oh, right. Yeah, oh, I gotcha.
Rob, Chris, maybe you guys should sit up here. The presentation.
And that from cello. Did you ever watch that?
Oh my God, you're
you ever
killing
watch
me. You
that?
just put me back to middle school or elementary school.
Yes, the next one in jello. Isn't that funny?
But
I know what you mean.
we were talking
I know,
about
I know,
peanut
I know,
butter.
I know.
Yeah. No,
We
I was
weren't
like-
watching the show. We were talking peanut butter.
I appreciate what you're saying.
Appreciate and Ravinia Tiffs.
Okay.
Exciting stuff.
And that's what Shelley used to do.
Calvin.
Annette.
Okay, yeah, you guys have to put me at the top of the agenda, so that's
Do her
the,
first next time.
we get over the business stuff first, and then you can wait to hear all the fun stuff.
No, this is fun.
This is fun?
This is exhilarating.
This is exhilarating. Okay,
So, a TIF. I believe this is the first time that I'm actually discussing TIF with the board in general. So, I hope you, within the two memos that were included in the workshop package, I was trying to define what a TIF was a little bit, just to make sure that everybody had a basic understanding. But I think I'm going to start off with that tonight. And it really, there's kind of like property tax levy, because it's related with the property tax levy. There's a lot of code around it. There's a lot of rules, a lot of regulations, and I'm really trying to give you the very, very simplest explanation of it. So, a municipality can look around and see how their community is growing or not growing, and what needs it might have, and it can decide to create a TIF, which is a tax increment financing district. It has certain boundaries that are defined. There are certain requirements that the properties within these boundaries have to meet. There's 3 different types of TIFs. You can have a plighted. I believe most people would think of it in that way. You can also have a conservation TIF, and then there is, this is my layman's term, like an environmental TIF if you realize that an area needs some serious environmental cleanup. So those are the 3 types of TIFs. TIFs would, this concept will go on for 23 years. And what it does for the municipality is the EAV of the properties within those boundaries are determined once the year of inception of the TIF, and they are frozen. And so for the sister agencies, such as the park districts, the school districts, your mosquito abatement, anybody that receives property tax revenue from those properties, it's frozen in time. So whatever the EAV is, it won't change for those 23 years. Now, as improvements are made by the municipality in that area, the EAV increases. And there's a gap then between I'm just going to start saying our frozen EAV and the increased EAV, and the incremental revenue that's associated with that increased EAV is used to fund the TIF and the TIF projects, and is not received by the agencies. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's a funneling mechanism, and in my memo, I refer to our contribution to it as our foregone revenue, because essentially, that's what it is. So let's start with the Ravinia TIF. The Ravinia TIF was created in 2005, and it will expire in 2029. Unfortunately, sometimes timing is everything, and the market, homeowners, the whole market crashed in 2008 and 9. So, and as you all know, our EAVs around all the communities plummeted at that time, and now we're still working our way back, but we're still not back to where we were in like 2005 and 2006. So the EAVs are still climbing back up, and as a result, this TIF has not produced as much revenue as the district, the city had originally thought so. The purpose of this TIF was to enhance the neighborhood around the streetscaping, the lighting. Actually, we've had a presentation about the signage. Gita had been here for talking to us about the different signage. So if you're in the Ravinia neighborhood and you're looking at the downtown district and you're seeing that the lights are changed, the crosswalks have been addressed, the signage. There is so much, it is actually very helpful, that signage that they have put. All of that is being funded through the TIF dollars. They intend to do some of their activities for 2017 and 18 is construction documents for some more streetscaping that they plan on having down there. And then their biggest activity that they're hoping that is going to happen is they are working with a builder at the 515 Roger Williams Avenue to build a mixed-use development. It is comprised of 30 dwellings and over 5,400 square feet of ground floor commercial space. If you take a few minutes and you look at the city's website, they have some renderings of what this building is going to look like. It'll be really sharp.
It's west of the tracks.
Yes, yes.
To the Claremont development?
Yes, it is the Claremont development. There is, at this point, the builder has not put in any documents or construction documents for zoning or permitting and anything. They're still negotiating a parking behind it. So that's still in the works. So the city is hoping that they just have to work through the process. And they're hoping that that process will be completed by the end of December or the beginning of January of 2018. So this is what I'm calling a small TIF, in that it covers approximately 24 acres, and there's 54 parcels on there, one of which happens to be some of our parks. To date, from 2005 through 2016, we have contributed about $133,000 to this program, to this TIF, and I'm estimating, and it's difficult to estimate that far into the future, but I am estimating that it will cost, our foregone revenue will be about $400,000.
So that revenue loss, so to speak, is because of the EAV freeze, and because that it didn't produce the revenue because of the
it's because we're frozen.
Right.
And the EAVs have been increasing, and they will continue. And there is revenue going into this TIF, but that's the whole point of the TIF. The sister agencies are frozen, and the increase to where that's what's funneling it. So that's our foregone revenue is the income for the TIF.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
We're subsidizing the development in the area.
What I thought I was saying is what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Well, what she said.
Okay. So a couple of other points that I'd like to make about this TIF, and then I'll go on to the Briargate TIF, is that they took a pay-as-you-go approach to this TIF, so they did not go out for any bonds. The city did not do any debt financing with this. So that is part of the reason why it is taken a little while to get through this, because they need to collect the funds to put in those streetscapes, to do the things. And they have been building their balance. So they're getting to the point where they can start doing or really making some of those streetscape improvements that they're looking for. And the other question that I had asked specifically about the Ravinia TIF was, were any of the public monies, so any of the monies that the sister agencies are funneling to support the TIF, were any of those monies being used for the benefit of private investment? Because they have this big $10 million project that they're looking to have completed. And I was just wondering if any of the TIF money was used or would be used in that project, and the answer that came back was no. So it is within those TIF documents that that situation wasn't going to be occurring. So all of the TIF money really is being used for the public lighting, streets, things like that.
How do they measure success?
Wow.
Right? I mean, I heard people that hate those signs. They don't bother me, like the large one on Green Bay. And
yeah, imagine.
You know what I'm saying? But how do you measure? Oh, yeah, look, my value of my property's gone up because I put a cool street lamp up there. I'm not trying to be as skeptical as it's sounding, but is there a measurement tool?
Reading the Ravinia paperwork, because I went back to their websites, to the city's website, and pulled up as much as I could on the Ravinia. In the TIF documentation, they don't actually define the success. And that's a very good question, and I don't think I have an answer for you without it having been laid out. I may be going to draw the assumption that their main goal really is to develop this piece of property and bring in some more residential housing there. So if that's not completed, then maybe their real goal wasn't completed.
It's on the north side of Roger Williams?
Yeah.
Okay, so that park with that big old tree in it,
Used
is
to be a
that?
7-Eleven or something. No, south side.
Oh, that's what.
North side.
Where the old 7-Eleven or White
Yes.
Man used to be.
Yes, it was a white man,
Oh,
the
so it's
7-Eleven
really
is
close to
there.
their tracks.
Yes.
That's where you used to buy cigarettes before you were 21.
I had a note from my mom.
Terry,
S&S.
Terry, I think the measure of success is the attraction of businesses
Yes.
and
The foot traffic, the people.
and the patrons that are brought to the restaurants and the other businesses that are developing in that area, and the fact that there will be at least one larger residential development, and it's all part of the enhancement of the area. So there's
Yeah,
no.
so it's down the line.
There's no measure of success that we had 3 new stores open. Or
No, it's
metric
not
like that.
defined like that at all.
Yeah.
Okay?
But this impacts the school districts much more than us because they have a bigger portion of your tax bill, correct?
Every TIF does, yes, yes. Briargate. So the Briargate TIF is in its infancy. I know this was discussed at the city level, and some reservations and concerns were expressed at that point. And as a result of that, the city has pulled together an advisory committee. I am on the advisory committee, as well as representatives from District 109, District 112, and 113. So at this point, the advisory committee has helped to do a search for, or an RFP for a consultant, and then we have gotten the report from the consultant. So I am now that we have some real information to share with you, this is the first time I'm reporting on this. So the TIF area is on the boundaries. It's really just that way. It's not that far from us. It encompasses the old Solo Cup property, as well as the police station, the where Jewel is, so everything along that corridor, and then so the old Deerfield Road, and then into along 41. So I have the map there, and on the map you can see how they've split this up into sub-districts and what kind of activity is going on in each of those sub-districts. So the eligibility study that was performed did conclude that under the conservation piece of the TIF concept, that the area is eligible to be a TIF. And some of the conditions that they found at this point is that there are 82 parcels in this TIF, and it covers 129 acres. And the EAV, if the TIF were to go and be created at this point, the EAV of the parcels is about $29 million. And just to give you a sense of how much larger the Briargate is to Ravinia, actually, comparing it to because where are my notes here? Excuse me. Our EAV, our total EAV for the Park District, all of the properties, is $2.3 billion, and the EAV in this section is $29 million. So that's 1.24% of our overall EAV is what we're talking about here, the area. The Ravinia TIF covers 0.32%. So I'm trying to give you an idea of how much larger this area is compared to the Ravinia TIF. So in the presentation that the consultants gave to the advisory committee, first they determined that yes, this area is eligible for a TIF under the conservation easement. They discussed the boundaries, and then they discussed 3 different scenarios of development, like the do nothing, do something a little bit, and then then a larger development. The budget here is $30 million, And this would be the project costs. And what I wasn't, after sitting through the presentation and then receiving some more information, I believe that these project costs that are included in the board packet really support the first scenario, because in the 3 scenarios, the TIF revenue under scenario 1 was totaling about $29 million. So that's kind of a wash. So this was the budget they have put together. The city definitely has been listening to the concerns of my concerns as well as the school district's concerns, and that money will be funneled away from us in a time when the school districts are, trying to redevelop and restructure, and while we've been addressing green print. So they understand it, they've heard our message, and they have asked us to come to them with an intergovernmental agreement so that we can mitigate the effect that it's going to be on the Park District as well as the school district. So that is the next steps that as that's the direction that I was given as a member of the advisory committee, that we need to, as a board, decide what it is, how we would want to participate with an intergovernmental agreement that complements this TIF. So having no idea what to ask for or what I asked, could the consultant provide some examples of intergovernmental agreements from other TIFs from other communities? And they sent me, not just me, the advisory committee, examples from the city of Chicago with both the Park District and the school district. And in the instances with the Park District, TIF money was used in one park to clean up a fuel tank or something, because they wanted to develop some adjacent property. In that agreement, it sounded like the Park District already owned the adjacent property, but there was a fuel tank and EPA issues, and TIF money was used to clean up that. And then in the second example, the Park District was given money to buy an adjacent piece of property, and they were spending the dollars to development. And then in both of the school district examples, it talked about renovating and helping to repair the school in the TIF community.
And that wasn't the park that was the money that was used with the park, that was the park within the TIF.
It was the parks within the TIF and the schools within the TIF as well.
So the funds have to stay within the TIF, if I remember.
I believe so, but that is something that I want to verify with our attorneys, because obviously any intergovernmental agreement we have will be reviewed and all of that. I also looked into a little bit of Glenview, because Glenview had the Glenview Naval Base. And that one's a little different, because that Glenview Naval Base property had no tax base. They weren't paying property tax on it, so the community just received this property. And that money, maybe Liz can verify with me, was the money that was being, some of the proceeds that was being shared with the Park District. But were those proceeds only spent in the TIF area, or was the Park District able to use those funds in other areas that they could use? So maybe it depends on how the intergovernmental agreement is written. Thank you. So this is a biggie. The golf course is much more fun to talk
Here's
about.
my suggestion. Why don't we refer this matter to the Finance Committee, where we can spend some time going over this to make a recommendation to the Park Board?
I would like that very much, actually, because I do have more dollars and more information to share, but I think it'd be more appropriate at the Finance Committee. But I do want the board to understand that the city is willing to create some intergovernmental agreements to help help us with the fact that this revenue, this incremental revenue, is going to be foregone to us. And to Cal's point, it will have a much larger impact on the school district, but we're,
Yeah, here-
it will, it will.
My suggestion is refer to the finance committee and also maybe have a representative from Ansel Kalink there who is well-versed in TIF and how they work and what kind of mitigation requests that we can make, and have them appear at the finance committee so that we can have a robust discussion about it, and then we can come back and have it, and try to educate the board, because this is new territory for all of us.
I agree.
Okay. I just would like to make one other comment, that I will be, the next advisory committee meeting is July 31st, and the city's corporate council will be there doing exactly what you said.
And hopefully we'll get a lot more information financially
Yeah,
from them at that
yeah,
point.
and Liza had, because I have some concerns about the deadlines that the advisory committee has been put on us, and that it's not enough time for the board to kind of wrap their minds around this and actually come up with a good request. So Liza's already verified that nothing is set in stone at this point, and that
I called Gita.
yeah, even after our July 31st meeting, there's going to be time for us to regroup with them.
Yeah, I have a question. Is the Ravinia, is Brown Park included in the Ravinia TIF?
I believe so. I believe that's the park that is.
There's also a
that's in
park.
the area.
There's also a park north of Roger Williams.
Snyder.
Right.
Yeah.
I was
The one
going
with
to
the
ask that
I
one.
know,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Snyder is.
Okay.
Not sure.
Brown
well,
was the
Brown's
one.
gotta be.
Brown was the one that came up in the Ravinia presentation. That was the only one that came up in the Ravinia presentation. So
We used to call the Snyder Grassy Meadows when our kids played there, because that's what it was.
What was that? What's the train park?
Brown.
Brown,
Brown.
right?
It's
That's
Brown.
how I
It's also known as Long Park in my mind.
In the choo-choo park.
Yeah, and the Choo-Choo Park from
We
last
learned
night.
Last night.
Yeah. It's got lots of names.
And we'll table this, we'll come back and readdress it.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Advisory Board Ambassador Program, Liza and Liz.
So,
Annette, that was not boring at all. That was good.
It's not as much fun. It's serious stuff. It's not as much fun.
she'll be back.
Ryan, enthusiasm.
Well, I know.
Well, let's get going. It's a long night.
Okay.
So this is a two-part conversation, and again, we are just bringing this to the Park Board for consideration. So, as you, well, not all of you are aware, but it was in the 1980s when the Park District of Highland Park first structured the advisory boards. In the 80s, advisory boards were pretty commonplace amongst park districts because it was a good means to get feedback from your users about various facilities and whatnot. And I think that for a long period of time, advisory boards served their purpose, and the Park District of Highland Park had actually established, where's my list? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 advisory boards. And as I say, in the early years, I think that they served a place because communication was very different in the 80s and in the 90s than really it is now, because now we live in a world of instant communication and we can get instant feedback. And I think that there is a lot of value in having FaceTime with your patrons, but also given the demands that everyone has on their time, coming to structured meetings to talk about things that may not be of real substance have sort of lost some meaning. Now, in our park district, of all of these advisory boards that we have, 2 advisory boards have really continued to meet. The Golf Advisory Board, which we reference, has really had a mission with the renovations of the country, with the country club, listen to me, with Sunset Valley and the clubhouse. And then the Athletic Advisory Committee, and really the baseball subcommittee of the Athletic Advisory Committee, has also had more movement and activity just because of issues relative to baseball and just a real desire to continue to help resolve baseball issues in Highland Park. all of the other committees, for the most part, we had an active adults committee that met, and I think we got some good conversations out of it. And then that hasn't met in a while. We had a youth committee that met, got some good things out of that, but the youth were giving us suggestions, but then none of the events were happening. And then all of the other committees in between, they just they haven't died, but we haven't had a need to meet. And what has happened in the meanwhile is that we developed the Rosewood Advisory Task Force, which proved to be a really good committee that got its teeth into a project, and look what we ended up with. When we had the issues at Park Avenue, we created the Park Avenue Task Force. They dealt with that issue and came back with recommendations to the board. When we were redoing Hidden Creek, we actually used the Hidden Creek Advisory Committee to help with consultation on the equipment. So it seems that the value that we're finding with these committees is really when there's a project that we can help get feedback from the public on. And so we find ourselves in a place where we have 12 committees, some that really haven't met, and what do we do? And so we wanted to, now that we certainly have Terry on board, I believe the last page of this report addresses who our known liaisons are now for our construction projects, for NSSRA, for the Human Relations Commission, for the Parks Foundation, and for the Finance Committee. So we still have the advisory group sitting out, and I'll call limbo, with the exception of golf and athletics/baseball. So so there are three things that we could do or I shouldn't say that there are three things that we could do. I think one of the things that we've talked about is where we are having success with the advisory committees, let them continue to meet. I mean, as long as the golf project is out there and athletics and some of the issues that are there, and you have a group that's actively engaged, let them continue to meet. But where we have other issues, we're suggesting to create advisory committees. I don't know what the proper name is, whether it's a task force, an ad hoc committee, an advisory committee, who we can have meet for purposes of projects, to take action, to actually accomplish something, as opposed to just being given information. And then the other half of the equation, and which is why Liz is also sitting here, is because she and the marketing department had been talking about how we can get, I guess I'll let you really express it, but more people talking about the Park District and talking to friends about the Park District and getting people to become involved in the Park District because they know people and it's a thing. So right now, our recommendation would be for you to consider, I guess, to create advisory committees on a more ad hoc, as-needed basis and meet when necessary. Listen to the discussion about the ambassador program, and then we can talk and see what your thoughts, questions, comments. We don't need to solve this problem tonight. We wanted to raise it because it's been sitting out there, but we have not had a turnover of people on many of these existing advisory committees in several years. We brought them in when we had Greenprint, and then we've just been having focus groups, or we'll send out surveys. So I think we can get information from our users on the internet like that now. So something to consider. So now Liz will talk about the ambassador program. And if I skipped anything on the advisory committee, let me know.
I think we're good. So customer ambassadors is, or the utilization of customer ambassadors has been a growing trend since the early 2000s. Companies like Apple, Spotify, technology type companies, and some of the cutting edge companies like REI have been using ambassadors for a while. There are a number of park districts close to this area, Vernon Hills, Gurnee, and Chicago, that use a type of ambassador program at their districts. And basically what it is, as Liza said, it is a program where you recruit very enthusiastic loyal customer volunteers who not only provide you feedback on the district, they are kind of the ears to the ground of the community, but they also are recruited to pass along information about the organization to their network of friends and neighbors. And this has become very successful in a lot of companies and other park districts that are that I mentioned that are close by. The goal is really to implement the program to increase the Park District brand value and message within the Highland Park community, and utilizing some of our most loyal and connected customers. The types of candidates that we would be looking for would be avid, loyal Park District customers who are active, who have an established network in the community, in schools and local organizations. We would probably want to recruit anywhere from 10 to 20 ambassadors. The core would be people who are engaged in the Park District, and we would want to hit on, a good cross-section of representatives of men and women in a variety of different age groups who are engaged, like I said, in the Park District. Either they are engaged themselves or their children are engaged. So we would really look for a good body of volunteers that can represent all different aspects and different points of views, that also would be from different areas, geographic areas of the district as well. So the program would be, ambassadors would work with the marketing department, for example. They would serve a minimum of 1 year. They would participate in quarterly focus groups to provide feedback on new ideas and community sentiment about Park District initiatives. Staff would have access to these people during these quarterly focus groups to maybe run new programming ideas, other types of things that we would want to run past community members. They also would spread the word about the Park District programs, events, and facilities and different initiatives, and they would receive some type of a nominal honorarium for serving in this capacity. So that's pretty much the program. Very simple. We would have to recruit these people, and we would keep in close contact with them, and whenever there is an initiative or a program or something that we would want to ask them to help spread the word, they would be asked to do so if they felt comfortable with it. So if someone is, let's say, not a fitness member and they don't really know a lot of fitness members, we wouldn't ask them to promote something that would be for the fitness center. It's just what they feel comfortable with, that they feel that their neighbors or friends would be interested in. And that's how it works most successfully, is that if you have a passion for something, that you're more likely to spread the word or give the recommendation or pass it along. Any questions?
Real quick, and then when Liza and I talked about putting this on the agenda, we discussed how when Lori and I got on the board, we were at a different time in this board. But I think that the value of the advisory committees was much greater than it would be today. We had them, people showed up, people participated, and then people just stopped. I think this is a great idea. I don't know what you guys think, but I just think going to the trout, it's not necessary to make people meet every quarter when they didn't want to be there after a while. I just think at the time it was good. I don't know if it's necessary anymore.
I'm going to take a contrarian view. Going back in history with the Park District, I mean, I first got interested in the Park District by serving on the Athletic Advisory Committee. And one of the things that frustrated me is that the Athletic Advisory Committee all of a sudden stopped meeting. And it was an impression within the community that the board / the Park District was not interested in input, that they thought they knew better, and therefore they didn't have to get input from the community. So when I decided to run, and Kathy probably remembers, I was a big advocate for these to basically resurrect the advisory committees. I have found that the ones that I have served on have been very productive. Thinking back about the tennis advisory committee, as board members, we hear very little about operations. We think about policy. When you go to these individual advisory committee meetings, you actually hear about what's happening at the facility or in the programming. I think back about the tennis, and there was a big discussion about how we were losing all our juniors to College Park, and how do we develop a more robust junior tennis program. And that really came out of the advisory committee, where they talked about branding and try to make the kids want to be part of Deer Creek. I think about Girls Play Strong. One of the things that out of the athletic advisory committees, for a short period of time, we were putting out a focus on girls' sports. We felt that there was not enough attention given to girls in our program. So we created this girls' athletic committee, where Girls Played Strong. We had the girls' camp came out of it. So I thought a lot of good ideas came. I think that we may have too many of them. We may be trying too ambitious to meet too often, but I think that they do serve a purpose. And the last thing I'm going to say is that if you look around, Brian, you come from the athletic advisory committee. You were involved in that. So were you, Terry. So was I. It creates a bench for people who are interested in the park district, who maybe eventually want to run for park board. And you look back in previous park board members, a lot of them, not talking about recently, but if you look back in the history, a lot of them came from advisory committees. People got interested and decided they wanted to run for park board. The city council, the city of Highland Park have all these commissions, and they kind of like serve as a breeding ground, a bench for them. And the tradition is that you go on the plan commission and eventually you get to the city council. That happened this year with Adam Stolberg, who was involved for 6 years on the plan commission, and he then ran for city council. I think that's something that we should be encouraging more people to be involved. And I get, Liza, your point that it's a new world. Maybe I'm old school about this, and I like the face-to-face conversation about this. And I know that we've struggled over the years getting people to actually come to the meetings, and unless there's a real passion, like we found with baseball and the golf advisory committee, sometimes it's difficult to get people to come to the meeting. But I don't think that's a reason for us to stop. We get busy. We get, we got involved. We had Rosewood. We had Greenprint. We get diverted. Our focus is not there. But I think about every once in a while, why we haven't had the girls' athletic committee meet in years? And I thought that we did get something out of it. And again, it's up to the community. If they don't want to show, we cancel the meetings. It's not the end of the world. And I think we have to give them the opportunity, so it's not like we think that we know everything and they should just follow what we do.
And while you're right, you and I are lucky. We have the baseball athletic advisory committee where everybody shows up, and we have hour and a half conversations. We have the golf where it's the same thing. I sat on other boards, we canceled meeting after meeting after meeting because we'd have one or two people agree to show up, and that was it. And that's been the biggest problem. If people don't have that passion, they're not going to come.
Then maybe we have to do a better job recruiting.
Is it mutually exclusive? And are we saying, because I thought I heard you say we would have these come up as needed basis, but I come from a market research family, and I'll just mention my wife used to work for Kraft Foods, and she used to literally go to people's houses and look in their cabinets to see what products they had in their fridge, in their cabinet. She would go shopping with them to see how they bought and things like that.
Gym bag.
Okay, so that's the sort of, that is a very granular approach. I think what Liz is talking about is getting these people that are passionate. But I agree with you that, like, I'm a prime example. I got more involved in the sports, especially particularly baseball, and that sort of whetted my appetite for, maybe I should, try out for this thing. So is it one, not the other sort of thing? I guess that's my question.
Well, I think that truthfully, I think that with the exception of the golf and the athletics, we just have not had a need. I look to your point about the Girls Play Strong. Our girls athletic programs are booming now thanks to that. they said we started this program, it worked, and we're off and running. So do we need to meet? I guess it's just, I look at it more where we have issues and concerns. It's good to bring people together to solve a problem that way. I just feel like from my own opinion, some of the advisory boards that didn't have as much going on were getting a little bit stale. I see trends in park districts that they've gone away from advisory boards. I mean, I get the point. It does help to promote more people that want to serve on the park board. I look at the foundation as being a bench for the park board. And I look at the ambassador program as potentially being that same bench. But I guess, we had such a hard time recruiting people, I guess until Terry came along, for the foundation board, and finding people for the ambassador program, I think is going to be a challenge because people's demands, their time, it's just they pick and choose where they want to go, and I don't know that we're as appealing. It's not right or wrong. That's my sense right now.
So we, in your opinion, we could not do the ambassador program and continue to have some of the other advisory.
Oh, I'm promoting having continued golf advisory and continuing athletics
Yeah, so
as they
Cal,
meet as
And then
needed,
other
but then,
advisory committees meeting.
So Cal,
Yeah.
is that you don't want the ambassador program?
No, I mean, I'm ambivalent towards the ambassador program. What I think is that from operational standpoints is that we have to be able to get as much feedback from our community about operations as possible. As board members, people come up and talk to us, and then we email Liza, or I ask them to send me an email, and I forward it to Liza if you have an operational issue. As board members, we don't get involved with operations, except for when we go to these advisory committee meetings, when people come in and say, we don't like how the lap with swimming is being structured, or we don't like the way, and the prime example is the tennis facility. What we heard at the tennis facility the last time I was part of that meeting is that why are we losing kids to College Park? And we actually came up with an idea through that advisory committee and how to deal with that. We created a more robust youth program, and then we talked about branding. I don't know if it still goes on there because I don't have kids in that program, but whether these kids are wearing T-shirts. Because I tell you that my favorite thing is when I go to a Highland Park football game on a Friday night and I see people wearing Highland Park District gear, and we should be promoting that. So those are the things that came out of these advisory committees. They kind of screeched to a halt with green prints, and I get it. We undertook a tremendous project creating green prints, and it really took a lot of our focus. But I'm busy. We're all busy, and I think back. I go, whatever happened to the advisory committees? And I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we didn't. You gave it the effort to try to recruit people, but
well, and I think part of it too
Yeah.
is that we get a lot of feedback because we do surveys all the time. We do membership surveys, and maybe we're not getting you that data to help you because then we're not asking people to come and meet. And I get the FaceTime is great, but I just think that people choose what they want to do. It's easier to go online and complete a survey.
But we should have a combination of that. When we did green print, we did the surveying, we did the interviews. We did over 200 interviews of stakeholders in this town, and all that information was valuable. That was data that we assembled in order to create the green print plan. I think that we just can't rely on one way of getting data. I think we need to have. And listen, if the people if they don't want to come, then we cancel the meeting. It is what it is. But I think that we still got to give them the opportunity.
Well, I'm sorry.
I was just going
Go
to say,
ahead.
one way of accommodating is, I think the ambassadors are, if we find people who have this interest, and be plugged in. But another way of achieving what we're trying to do is have a periodic open house. Like you have an open house at the tennis at Deer Creek, you have an open house at Centennial, and you invite people. That's your ad hoc advisory committee. If people show, they show. And then you can...
I mean, this is going back, an idea that we brought up a couple of years ago is with our workshop meetings, is that we float it and sometimes go to facilities and give it up and have the facility be highlighted in that workshop meeting, so we can have the workshop meeting at the tennis facility at Deer Creek. Yeah, we talked about this a long time ago. We never did anything about it. But if you could do it that way, and that would, put the focus on that facility, and we can have people come, if they're interested. Hey, our workshop meetings at Deer Creek tonight, if you're interested, or the next week or whatever.
School districts do that
That's sort
too.
of, and that's sort of what I was getting to.
Yeah.
We took the board and went to Deer Creek, and you play it up that we'll listen to anything you want to talk about at
That's
Deer
something
Creek.
I think
Go
that-
to
yeah.
Centennial, whatever.
That might be better, you might get more people, but I'm telling you, we canceled a lot of meetings.
We did. I'm not arguing with that because I know I was a lot of meetings that got canceled. Even with the golf advisory, even with baseball, we just had the baseball. Yeah, baseball just the most recent meeting got canceled.
Well, look,
Yeah.
we had the Pogo open house, and nobody showed up.
But they still-
you can't do anything. You can't.
Yeah.
You can only invite people to these events, but it might facilitate if we went to the facilities and had our board meetings as
that might be an interesting way of addressing
I like that.
Yeah, the only problem that we have is that
Space.
we're limited with space to be able to do presentations like we did tonight, because of activities and program that goes on when we're meeting. We don't have designated meeting spaces in all of our facilities. But,
We'll figure it out.
there are places where we can go, and maybe where we can go, we could go, and where we can't really accommodate a good meeting, maybe the alternative is to do the open house and see what kind of response we get at that.
Let's try it.
Just mention too that, there is an element of this of the ambassador program for residents to provide feedback, and it's a two-way street. So this program does, it may not to the extent that you're thinking of, more in depth, but this type of feedback might bring to the surface things that could eventually become, we need a task force, a resident task force to go after this problem, because this is the trend that we're seeing, our ambassadors coming back and giving us feedback that this is what they are experiencing or what their neighbors are experiencing. So it could...
Not everything rises to a
serve
level of a problem. Something maybe just need a slight tweaking to just, but it's, as much information we can get, and much information you guys get. You're the ones who do operations.
Yeah.
I have a day job, so as much information you guys can get, the better, I would think. Laura, you're going to say something.
Yeah, so I was listening to what you guys are saying, and you touched on some really interesting points. But one of the things that I wanted to comment on is that I think that the ambassador program, will accomplish just that of these advisory boards, okay? Because we're going to identify kind of hardcore, we'll have someone from the rec center, we'll have a tennis person ideally, so every group will be represented, and that's where you start getting the feedback. And then when we do have something going on, they know who to contact, or they'll get the word out to those users. I also, I do agree that, people will find us. If they know you, hey, Terry, hey, Lori, what happened from Jamie, people who know us reach out to us. But, what if we continue to have liaisons, or whatever you want to call us, and then maybe you put our pictures, our headshots, maybe smaller versions by what we have, let's say if I'm Deer Creek. So then when people go to look up something, they'll say, oh, she's the contact. Where, again, they'll just direct the emails to us, we'll forward them along, but that way, Cal, we're hearing stuff, okay? And so we're still engaging, and it's still more human than just an internet. They'll say, just an email. I think that's another way to do it, where you make us the contacts, and by calling us advisory heads or whatever you want to do. But yeah, unfortunately, the other advisory committees that I served on were not as fruitful as what you're talking about. That's why those are still ongoing. But yeah, people didn't want to be there. There weren't enough people, but not enough to cancel. People were just looking at their watch, like, okay, well, how long is this going to go? They had, a half an hour to give us, and then people were leaving, and it really wasn't very effective. So,
I'm not disagreeing with that. We have too many. We have 14 advisory committees. That's way too many. What you could do is you could probably put them in a hat of maybe 3 or 4 or 5. And if something comes up, like for example with athletics, we had people came to want to talk baseball. People wanted to talk about girls. They didn't want to hear about flag football. They didn't want to hear, and then they have to listen to a long presentation. We thought that was not fruitful. That was not a good use of their time. So we created subcommittees, and that could be done. That's how things evolved. I think that's, if we limit the amount, we don't try to be too ambitious by having 14 meetings on an annual basis, so we limit it, and then we can always add more if there's an area of interest, like we had with baseball. There was an interest on baseball, and people wanted to meet more often about it.
I guess I
Yeah.
would want to know, I defer to you, Liza, and, are you getting a lot of feedback about what's wrong, ideas? Are you guys getting it directly from surveys or emails?
We do get them from our surveys, our membership surveys and our program surveys. And the good thing is that we take that information, we tweak our programs to help alleviate the concerns that people have or ideas that people have. So, yes, I mean, it is that, and I think that is standard operating procedure for us to get this feedback, and then to, as we are preparing for the upcoming season, to implement suggestions on how we can fix operations.
And, because it's not only their time, but it's our time, and it's staff time, and it's just not, and the ones I've served on, it really, other than Hidden Creek, but something came up, we had a purpose,
The
people-
purpose
it was
helps.
active. Yeah, if it's just a check-in, they'll check in when they want. I know at the rec center, I always see people filling out, suggestion box, and I know that's at Deer Creek. I think when people have something on their mind, happy or not, they feel comfortable just doing it anonymously or calling someone directly. I think times are changing. I think,
I mean, what I've noticed, and we've, just going back to athletics, is that, and I mean no disrespect to anybody, but the millennials have less of a civic interest, less of an interest in providing us with that information, where the baby boomers were more active in doing things. I mean, you think about coaching. We had waiting lists of coaches with baby boomers. We can't find millennials to coach, and we have to hire coaches. Right. So I think that if we're sitting back waiting for them to contact us, my concern is this next generation who is just less involved and more self-absorbed. I think that we might be missing some valuable information.
Categorizing them too.
Yeah, they'll be virtual.
They're more absorbed in their own families, is
Yeah.
what they are.
You know what, I
There's
think
a lot
you're
of
right.
stuff.
But when we had the baby boomers, the baby boomers didn't show up to these meetings.
No, but I mean, you think about the waiting list we had for coaching.
But in the wait list we have for coaching baseball, and look at what committee is thriving, is baseball.
But it's not just millennials. I mean, it's just younger people don't have the civic pride, and they don't want to take the time to volunteer. I will tell you, when we were looking for foundation members, we literally printed a list of major users of the Park District. We had pages and pages and pages of names. And we literally went through and reached out to, I don't know how many names. And you know how many we got? 0. Oh, sounds like a great idea, but I'm not interested.
Wasn't on that list.
No.
And
We call them our super users.
And that's why volunteerism is part of, is required now in high schools. Key Club,
The Interact Rotary Club for high
Rotary.
school is booming.
Yeah,
Yes.
Rotary's amazing. At the
Yeah.
Restor Center, they were the best
Yeah.
volunteers we had. It's temples. It's
We
it's
can't get
kindergarten,
the
churches.
adults.
There must be another. We need to tap somewhere else, because one-on-one like this doesn't work. It needs to be required or something. Maybe we're not partnering with the right groups, but.
I mean, for example, Brian, you're here. When you send out the end of seasons, you send out those questionnaires. What kind of feedback do you get? I mean, is it good feedback, or is it?
Some. I mean, honestly, most of the feedback is just. I mean, there's no shortage of feedback. It's
Yeah.
really during the year. I mean, people call all the time. People want to get feedback. People will come in, whether it's athletics. I mean, you guys are on the phone constantly getting.
Or emailing.
Or emailing, and I mean, the rec center, those feedback jars are full. And we call, and we follow up, and we have conversations. So I mean, there's no shortage of feedback, but it's not necessarily group discussion, but it is. We get tons of feedback.
I mean, we don't have to solve the problem tonight, but we have a long
No,
meeting.
but
Yeah.
I agree. But
Yeah, I have a lot more to add to this, but it's getting late, I think.
So what do you want us to do?
Well, why don't we let us talk amongst ourselves and come back to you, and maybe we will, maybe as a start, maybe we look at scheduling workshop meetings at places like a Heller or maybe a Rosewood in the fall where we could accommodate a real meeting and see if we get people. And maybe we ask them the question. I mean, let's talk to the people that come to the meetings and see.
I mean, it's also good for us commissioners. I mean, frankly, I don't get to Heller very often. And I
Right.
would, I mean, if it would be forced.
We should do rec center.
Rec
Heller,
center.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
but we, if rec center, we'd have to do the country club. We'd have to meet in the country club. But yeah, I mean, we can find the
We
places
have
to
a
do it
space.
The
appropriate.
basketballs.
Yeah.
But, you know, it also has to do a lot with the time. No one wants to leave their home at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. And, but it's the kind of thing I feel like those users, that's why the suggestion boxes are so great. They're already there. Here, make it easy for me. But if we have to ask them to leave their dinner or to come home, that's I think what hurts attendance. That's why I think, you know, notes are better. They're not.
I mean, Barney usually goes to those. I don't go to those.
It's a matter of, I think it's just, it boils down to being a matter of convenience for people.
And time.
I mean, Barney, you could talk about those meetings. You go to a lot of those, don't you?
Yeah,
Okay,
unfortunately, we always are the ones who skate through.
All right. Terry, you
So-
want to add anything?
No.
I'm fine.
Well,
I think I have a lot to say about this because I think it's fascinating, but it's going to go along. So we're
Well,
not
Terry,
deciding anything.
I would suggest that, why don't we set up a time, you can come in and talk to some of the staff. We're happy to listen to your thoughts.
Yeah.
And then we can
Yeah,
spit it back to the
Or
board.
We could put this,
I don't think it has to do with that. It has to do with our conversation. 'Cause I think it's great. I mean, yeah, no, this isn't a
Well, we can
complaint
do
at
it
all.
to be continued and put it
That's
on
what
an
I'm saying.
upcoming workshop. All right,
Yes.
then we'll do that.
all right,
Let's
let's do that.
as long as it's not
And-
urgent.
Let's
and
table it for tonight.
Yes, we could do it at the workshop we have at the rec center.
Right, because now that
Heller.
Karen's gone, we have our mid-season reports.
And Liz, I just want to say that I think the emblem on the stationery is terrific.
Oh, thank you.
It's really nice and crisp, and it's just more professional looking and polished. It's good.
Is girls' sports really doing
Liz,
that
thank
well?
you.
It's doing a lot better.
Yeah,
All right,
it's great to hear.
Yeah, it truly is.
These vouchers.
we have our mid-season status reports.
She's back.
She's back.
Yes, they're here.
They're here to
yes.
provide support.
Yes.
Why don't we do this?
To catch the tomatoes.
Because
It's time real quick. I don't have a very detailed, long, lengthy report.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
But let's. I mean, this was kind of for Karen's.
No, it's just for me. I want to hear it too.
Right. Well, we want to hear it, but it just Liza and I talked. We're going to send all this to Karen.
I'd still like to hear it.
But no. But
I don't read. I just listen. I just read. I look at the pictures.
Let's create a financial advisory committee, and you can report to them then.
Do you want to eat?
No,
Would
let's-
that help?
Let's just go
Have
quickly.
meat?
Let's just do a short
No,
presentation.
Let's go through the short version, and if there's any questions.
Great.
That was my
It-
point.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
That was
so,
where I was trying to go
Yes.
before I got
Yeah.
a movie reference.
we got short version. We've got stuff going on. There we go. There's
No,
my.
I want a little bit longer.
You want a little longer? Okay. So tonight, the mid-season status report is focusing on the Hidden Creek Aqua Park, the Highland Park Country Club, Park Avenue, and Rosewood. So if you can follow along, I'm just gonna go through the documents, I believe in the same order that are in the workshop packet. So we're gonna start with Hidden Creek Aqua Park. Obviously, it's summertime.
Give me 1 sec. Oh, okay.
Okay, so obviously it's summertime and we are very busy operating the pool. The membership numbers we're down only 4 memberships compared to 2016. So personally, I consider that almost a wash. That's pretty decent. We are in our 3rd season with the splash pad, so I think it's fair to say that the newness about it and the novelty has probably worn off a little bit within the community. And our daily admission numbers are down by 1,500 participants, which when I first saw that number, I was trying to get my mind around it because I was like, oh my gosh, that seems like a lot. But Rob actually did a little work for me, so that was very nice of you. And he compared this year's weather from the opening of the season through the end of June to last year's, and I can see why the numbers have fallen down a little bit. Since the kids have been out of school, the weather during the weekends have been cooler. It's during our weeks that our weather has been warmer and more pool focused. The weekends, the 3 weekends in June, since the kids got out of school, they were only in the 70s. Whereas this time last year, that same 3 weekends, each of those weekends were in the 90s. So there is a big difference in the dollars.
Quick question, just comparing 2016 to 17, is 2016, is this June of 2016 to June of 2017, or all of 2016?
This is year-to-date to
Year-to-date.
June
Got it.
30th.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Even with memberships and everything?
Yes,
I got it.
yes.
And do you do does the membership price go down the longer you go in the summer?
Yeah, there's. they
Oh,
do-
yes,
they-
yes.
Whatever you call it.
On July
40% off.
24th, we're going to have the sale begins, and it's like a 40% off the membership.
Got it.
It's really there to entice people for the month of August to
Yeah.
participate. So, and also at the end of, this is actually looking into 2018, we'll do a double dipper sale is what they call it at the end of the pool season, where people can purchase their membership in advance. So I think things are, it's a little off, or a little behind last year, but I think the pool is doing well with their operations for the year.
Okay.
The Sunset Valley and Highland Park Country Club, so just our golf comparison, because we're really trying to look at this combined operation. I just, to do the abridged version here, I'm going to focus on the 3 numbers in the kind of the middle of the page. So Sunset Valley Golf Course to comparing 2016 Sunset Valley Golf Course to the Country Club 2016. Sunset Valley Golf Course had over 2,000 more rounds than the Country Club. That's 16 to 16. I'm just sharing that as a basis of what type of activity is going on between those two clubs in the year when they were both operating. Now, for Highland Park Country Club, their 17 operations compared to their 2016 operations, they are up by 2,600 rounds. And that is a catalyst because we are down to 1 golf course. But the bottom statistic is the one that really catches my attention. If you combined 2016's activity at both the Country Club and Sunset Valley Golf Course and compare it to our sole golf course this year, we are down 7,000 rounds. And I think that's kind of telling, because some of that would be due to capacity, because on a weekend you don't have 2 courses running. You know, you're maxing, like an airplane, you're maximizing out your capacity. So you can take, I don't know how many rounds off of that, but it just seems like, to me, where are a good 4,000 or 5,000 rounds? That's what I'm wondering. So if you reduce that number a bit to say, okay, we would be limited by the capacity, where are those rounds?
Actually, another important, the second one where it says 2017 Highland Park Country Club versus 2016 Highland Park Country Club, it shows a difference that with 1 golf course, the amount of rounds at Highland Park Country Club increased almost 2,700 rounds. So if you can extrapolate that, if there's only 1 golf course and it's Sunset Valley, right now there's over 20%, maybe 25 or 30%, 30% increase in Highland Park Country Club with only having 1 golf course. So, because one of the things we talked about with the business plan with Sunset Valley is that if we close Highland Park Country Club, how many rounds are we going to capture over at Sunset Valley? By this, we were able to, Highland Park Country Club captured 2,700 rounds. I would hope that we would do better at a Sunset Valley golf course, because I know we talked about when you try to create your business plan, what are you going to, how are you going to quantify that? 5%? Are we going to capture 10%? Right now, Highland Park Country Club captured 30%, and if that number holds true and Sunset Valley going forward, and if that's the only golf course in this town, that would make a huge difference to the bottom line of Sunset Valley. And I think that would really, we would be operating way in the black if
But
that.
we don't know.
But I'm telling you,
People love Highland Park Country Club, and they come from out of town. You know, we don't know.
no, I think really what's going on in Highland Park Country Club, now that I spent the summer there, is that they get, and Rob can speak to this better than me, but they get a lot of people, I get paired with people, and I says, why are you here? I go, well, I bought a Groupon, or I got it, it was the cheapest rate out there. I mean, it was $28 with a cart.
Right.
Because I usually play later in the afternoon, or whatever the amount is. I think those are the people that I find at Highland Park Country Club, they're looking for the deal.
Every golfer is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing to note, the only additional thing to note here is with the season passes, is that last year we had sold 91, and this year there's only 23. And I know, speaking to Rob, he knows where the other pass holders are and what they're doing, and what they're doing is waiting for Sunset to be finished and complete, and they're looking forward to that. So to your point, they're coming back to Sunset Valley once it's
So
it's
you look
done.
at Sunset Valley's rounds, 9,700 in 2016. I mean, when we create our business plan for Sunset Valley going forward, are we going to? This is the question. I'm not expecting an answer tonight, but how many of those rounds do we expect back? We're going to get back.
Every
We're
bit
gonna
of
have
them.
we're gonna have a shorter season though.
No, but put that aside. We're putting that aside. Yeah.
Really,
19.
2019 would be the benchmark.
So I think
But
that when we
yeah,
create the business plan, I mean, the two items you need to address is, number one, are we going to repatriate the people who might have left and not, that 9,700 rounds? And the second issue is that, and then this is the harder issue, is that how many of the people who are Highland Park Country Club people would we capture and bring over to Sunset Valley? Because that would really, because then we can do our numbers. And so I know we talked about this in the past and I know you guys are working on the business plan, but everything flows from those two threshold questions. Okay.
And I think that sooner we make a decision about what happens at HP, that will help us, I think, will educate us about what to do about, can we capture some of those people with coupons or with, some sort of carryover.
But that's what we have to talk about there,
Right.
because we have to be careful. We don't want to be discounting too much at a new renovated Sunset Valley.
Well, it's going to be a draw by itself. I don't think we need to do anything.
Yeah.
And
That's all.
What
To be determined.
So the next question is let's talk about the finances of the
Yeah, I
country
have a
club.
question
Okay,
that you can
okay, sure, go ahead.
You have a bottom line on page 3 of 4 of minus $250,274.90. I didn't do the math, but is that taking all different facilities and the minus 110 at the golf clubs and grounds, the plus 66,000 at the learning center?
So if I'm looking at a page that's got
That's right here.
Highland Park Country Club, all centers combined?
Yeah,
Is that
that's
the
it.
page you're
Yeah.
looking at,
Yeah.
Brian?
So we're at minus 250 for the year?
That's the budget amount.
The budget that we passed, and during the
Okay.
budgeting process, we had talked about how this combined operation was not going to be profitable. The annual budget is a loss of $340,000. To date, we're at a loss of $231,000.
569.
Is that projected
Yes.
over the year, or is that just
No,
today?
this is
That's
as of
annual.
Oh,
6/31.
okay.
So, but the budget as of 6/31, the mid-year budget was 285.
So we're
a
operating,
loss.
we're ahead of ourselves.
So we are ahead of ourselves a little bit.
'Cause
and
this is
some
the
of
prime
that-
time. This is prime time.
This
for
is the
them.
prime time.
Yeah.
However, the savings isn't in, or the growth there isn't in the revenue. It is in the operations, in the savings of expenses. So without
How could that be when you're getting?
scrutinizing the invoices too much, some of this savings from budget could simply be timing because we haven't seen those expenditures yet.
But how can that be when we have almost 2,700 additional rounds? How can that be revenue?
Well, I'm comparing it to budget. it is definitely over the prior year at the same day,
What
which
am I
is the right-hand column. The very last column is the
Year to
prior
date.
year-to-date.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, the budget, maybe they were overzealous in the budgeting. When I'm saying the majority of the budgeting for the country club came through Kemper. We were part of it, but they were talking about the rounds, things like that. So, I think it's fair to say we're ahead of last year. That's without a doubt.
And that's the 2,700 additional rounds.
Yeah. Okay. The only other thing that if we're going to keep this brief, that I want to point out really quickly, and if you turn to the page where it's just kind of a couple of boxes, it just says Highland Park Country Club Banquets. This was a report that we had asked for, trying to get a better idea
Page
of what
39.
is the banquet combination. Are they mostly outings? Are they mostly what I call social bar mitzvahs or weddings and things? And the bottom line here is this bottom box, both for 2016 and this is 2017 as of 6/30 are the actual numbers, but also they know what they've already booked. So it is possible that the 2017 numbers will change if they get some more banquet bookings between now and the year end. But as it stands right now, the banquet outings only comprises about 10% of the overall banquet budget. And I just think that was a piece of information that I wanted to make sure the board understood, because I think we haven't had that statistic to discuss.
So run that past me again. So what you're saying is that there's only 10% of the banquets is associated with golf?
Right, the
Yeah, if you
rest
go-
of
if
the
you-
banquet
if you
budget
go,
is.
like 2 pages earlier, the total outings at Sunset Valley, I'm sorry, at Highland Park was 8 in 16 and 9 in 17. It's not making up.
That's through June.
Well, the other one would be through June, too. They're both year-to-date.
So you're basically saying that if the banquet
Yeah.
facility is operating exclusive of golf,
I was ignoring that.
then you're saying 90% of the revenue would still be there?
I believe so, because it's associated with weddings, the
Bar mitzvahs.
the bar mitzvah industry, and then social, whatever that might be, retirement parties, special events, Rotary, fundraisers.
The city made a
whatever.
big deal about how the fact is that you needed to have this elaborate banquet facility to support these outings and golf, but it's really not what these numbers are.
Banquets.
It's banquets that are really doing, it's not really the golf. They don't really need the golf to operate a banquet
No.
facility.
Right.
No.
That's what that's
I think
telling
what
us.
you
Totally says
need,
that.
what
Yes.
you need
Yeah.
is a beautiful setting. Because when you are sitting there and you are looking out those windows,
interesting.
it's a beautiful,
Saying that
beautiful
forever. It
setting.
needs a facelift. That room has needed a facelift.
Well, but.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, but the
Yeah, yeah.
point,
Different things.
yeah, the
Yeah,
point
one's
that
outside,
Cal
one's
and
inside.
Annette were discussing is pretty essential to the whole analysis, that the number of golf outings is 8 through calendar, through today, 8 or 9. And I don't know what the number is for the whole year.
26.
26, but
It's
it's insignificant. It's 10 to 11% of the revenue.
From the banquet side, yes, the way we account for it. Yeah.
That-
So banquets is a good business.
Banquets are good
Minus
business.
golf.
Outings is not necessarily driving.
And that is the banquet facility self-sufficient without golf? I mean, we get, are we revenue
The way we're
positive?
accounting for it, the building is separate from the banquets. So we would need to look at it, I would have to pull the numbers together, because we have them as two different centers. Because when we first took over the operations, we didn't know, would we continue banquets, but that building was always going to be there regardless of how it was used. So when we set up the centers, it was set up to have the building costs standalone. So you need to combine those two together, because you
Yeah,
can,
yeah.
because the banquets happen in the building.
'Cause
So
you're
I
not
need to look
expensing,
at those
yeah.
two together to say if banquets is holding its own.
But if
Alone banquets are budgeted to make 138,000.
But that
with
doesn't
golf.
include the building expenses, though.
No,
That's what Matt's
just
telling us.
standalone banquets.
And so maybe
Okay, and
maybe
the
question-
building has budgeted year-to-date, the cost of running that building is $542.
So you were losing $400,000 on banquets then?
542,000 to do.
Yeah,
what?
I need to go back and pull this
Yeah.
together better.
It's a
I'm kind
tough
of,
one.
I did not anticipate that question. missed it. I try to
Well, I think
anticipate
the
them.
question is, if you were to lock the building, there's several questions. If you were to lock the building and not operate it, other than what we need for the rec center, what would that cost be?
Just mothball it?
I'm just throwing out, there's no, you gotta run the heat.
You run the heat, and you gotta have minimum temperature.
But there may be some, maybe other savings if you don't run banquets. And that's part of the analysis, I think, of getting to.
I don't
the
think we need to make, that's down the road. I think what we really need to focus on right now is whether, based on the numbers, that we should consider requesting that the city terminate golf at the property, and do we need to have golf to support the banquet facility?
No.
And I think,
No.
what I'm hearing tonight is that we're going to be losing $240,000 or something like that on golf operations with one golf course located in one municipal golf course. In addition, what I'm also hearing tonight is that the banquet business does not need the golf in order to support it. That basically it could be a standalone enterprise.
Very important.
That's what I'm
point
thinking.
you made.
Those are the two things I'm hearing right now. Now, how we analyze that with the building, that could be done at a later date.
I agree with that.
So I think, okay, I didn't mean to cut off. Is
No,
there anything
you're
else?
fine.
But
So
I have one other
Yeah.
golf operations question. Do we know the percentage increase or decrease in golf at other facilities, other courses? Like the comparable course, you know.
Like Deer Path, Klein-
Deer Path, whatever they are. Are they plus 10%, down 10%, or are they?
I have
where-
not asked any of the courses at this time where they are. We usually do it toward the end of the year.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think we need to make a decision whether we think golfing is a long-term option at the country club, after hearing these numbers. And so maybe that we should consider that soon.
Oh, okay. Let's consider that soon.
And I think this idea.
Again.
And I think this other bit of information with the banquets being so popular, that goes back to my facelift idea. And that place is a dump. And people are still renting out. So just imagine how much more booked we could be if it was more aesthetically pleasing and just warmer. I mean, that's doing pretty well for being so run down. And
But Lori, the hidden catch that we need to understand is to be able to run the building. How much do we have to put into
Right,
it?
into
Not
the
just the
building, not just
facelift,
okay.
but mechanical systems, et cetera.
Right, okay.
Okay.
We had that number at one point.
We're working on it.
It's,
We had a number at one point.
it definitely needs to be refreshed. It's a very
It
old
was from
number.
3 years ago. I
Yeah.
remember.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we need to analyze, now that we know that Sunset, we've heard from Ryan's presentation tonight, that Sunset will be open the second or third quarter of next year, whether, based on the numbers we're hearing right now, based upon, I know we've done some previous studies and what kind of improvements need to be done just at the golf course. I think we should consider that and hear a presentation from staff with regard to that and see if there's any recommendation. Because, I mean, looking at these numbers, it's difficult for me to support losing $231,000 on a facility that's going to even be worse next year when we have a brand-new Sunset Valley opening up. That's just my point.
I agree.
So I think we should consider that at the next meeting.
2 more.
Okay?
Okay, Park Avenue. Going smoothly. The boats go in, the boats go out. Okay. Trying to condense it.
Break even.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
without dredging.
I do have a couple comments here.
Another 30,000.
First of all, there is similar usage from 2016, so the numbers and the activities really haven't changed too much. Dredging is not included in the operational department that is taken out of our capital fund, so there is an additional $30,000 that was spent this year on dredging. It's pretty much $30,000 every year. But my strongest comment here is the partnership with the city, where the city is monitoring the parking lot and providing the service and the security and all of that, has been a wonderful, wonderful intergovernmental agreement for us, because we are seeing our numbers increasing from 2015.
And the community in general.
Yes, and the community in general likes the
Yes.
police officers there. So at the end of 2016, Park Avenue, in my mind, it broke even. It was at an $1,800 loss. In 2015, it had a $20,000 loss. So looking forward, we're already ahead of where we were this time last year. So it is, this intergovernmental agreement that we have with the city has definitely been of small benefit to us. Park Avenue is not a big moneymaker for the Parks District by any stretch, but it is nice that I am anticipating that it will either break even or have a small profit this year. So that is a good thing. So that is my comment on Park Avenue.
What we said, Park Avenue, why don't we sell daily passes?
Because of the inability to monitor the type of traffic that we're getting. The police have turned away 1,700 cars that want to do the loop. And you throw loopers into that very tight area, and actually, the loopers don't have anything to do with the daily fees. It's really not about not being able to control traffic. We don't know how many boaters we're going to get, and if you get slammed down there, that's the concern. That's when it becomes safety issues.
Do you ever think about selling like a 10 pass or something, 10 ride or something?
Because then we have to have a person there to man it.
We
At
usually
this
have a person
point,
to man it,
no,
don't
we don't.
Not anymore?
During
No,
the week,
on the
we
week-
don't.
on the weekends. On the weekends.
Not during the week.
Not during the
Do
week.
we not launch during the week?
You can launch.
They do.
All right, no, I'm just looking at the motorized launch totals for 17, not applicable for May, June weekdays.
We don't monitor it.
Okay.
So it's only on weekends that we have staff down there?
Mm-hmm. And
Is
that's
that
why
a
we're
lot?
having the savings.
Is
Precisely.
Because we've changed our staffing arrangement because the city has taken over more of the responsibilities. So no, we're not charging daily fees, but that's okay because if they want access to it, they have to buy the season pass, which is a better benefit for us.
Get any complaints from any Highland Park residents without having the daily
Some of
fee?
the boaters would like to see
Yes.
us do the daily fee.
Highland Park boaters, Highland Park residents, or just boaters in general?
I have not heard, there is no one from Highland Park who has reached out. Alan Cohn, who I met with from the yacht club, he asked about it, but I have not heard one Highland Park boater say, I can't launch.
How much is an annual pass?
Couple of $100? 200?
$60 per resident.
$60? That's it?
200.
260?
Non-resident, 60 for resident.
$60 for residents.
But the residents can use it 7 days a week, except on Saturdays and Sundays before 3 o'clock. Just think of Saturdays and Sundays before 3, you need a Park Avenue boating decal. So if you want to go down there.
So I think you said it was $60 a season for a Highland Park resident to launch.
don't need a daily
$60
fee
for
then.
the whole season?
The whole season?
And then I don't have to.
Is the season pass is $60? No.
That's not crazy there.
This is Chandler's. It's $60?
$60 for a weekend season pass.
That's it's $250 for Rosewood and then $200.
You're talking about the parking pass.
Yes.
He's
No.
talking about a launching pass.
A launching pass.
On launching,
Chris is
but
saying
no.
It's a couple
decal.
$100.
$440 for the.
There you
Well,
go.
there you go. That makes sense.
That
That
Yeah.
sounds better.
I was talking about the decal.
Yeah. So it's $440 to launch as a local resident.
Right.
Yeah,
What is a non-resident?
$770.
And what's the breakdown?
Oh, it's here.
It's on our list.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Genius.
I do have a question.
So what's $60 a parking pass?
Parking.
Just the season, I was thinking,
Car.
you're still talking about
Oh,
the
okay.
dailies and the seasons.
So we still have launches during the week, we just don't have anybody there this year.
Launch on your own.
In past seasons, we had somebody there.
But the launching is minimal.
Not.
It's fishermen in the morning.
It stopped in 2015 was the last season that we had people there
Okay.
during the week. 2016 we did not, and that's why Park Avenue showed that $1,500 loss in 2016 as opposed to a $20,000 loss in 2015.
Well, so it sounds like the status quo is working.
Status quo I like.
Right.
It's working.
Police are happy with no daily fees. Park District is happy with the police dealing with the traffic and the parking. It's great.
Do we get complaints about no daily fees or?
The yacht club has, there are boaters that would like to see us sell a daily fee.
They're mostly non-residents though.
Right.
People call us.
Okay.
And think of it, if somebody is down there and they don't have a launch permit, and the police come by, they get a parking ticket.
Correct.
That enforces it for us.
Okay. So if you're happy, I'm happy.
I'm good. That's
Okay,
great.
good. All
Okay,
right.
good.
Okay.
Rosewood Beach.
It's, yes, Rosewood Beach, still there, swimming along, it's doing good. And I think I'm gonna have help from all the staff that, the biggest change at Rosewood Beach has been this auto attendant. I think the, number of passes, the season passes that non-residents purchased is comparable to last year. But it's the auto attendant with these daily fees that is making a huge difference at Rosewood Beach. There, as of today, because the fees and charges is like $19,000, and that includes the season passes. But as of today, the daily fees that were, we started with the auto attendant on June 20.
Started May 16th with the auto attendant.
Thank you.
Around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
Between 12 and 1 o'clock.
He knows. He's monitoring it for you.
He turned on the computer.
Through that auto attendant, our non-residents.
How many Russians
purchase
are trying to get into our
a
parking?
parking.
He knows.
To park there. They can buy parking for $15 an hour, or for 4 hours, it's $40.
$40.
Right, so a non-resident comes in and there's a space, so they purchase not only to park there, but to enter into Rosewood at $10 a person.
What app is that? Is that an app?
It's an auto attendant.
It's an auto attendant.
Oh, but
In
it's
the
not.
city. When you
It's
put
a
your
parking
credit
meter
card
thing.
in.
No, I get it. I
Who's-
thought that,
who's-
like you have those park heroes and whatever. I wonder if we could type into that.
Who's-
We have not enabled the app of that unit yet.
Oh,
So you have to go on
Yeah.
the unit itself
Oh, okay.
to-
And when?
So,
Wait, I'm sorry.
so as of today, we have brought in $18,480 through this auto attendant. That's a combination of the parking fees and the admission. So that brings it to about $340 a day is what that turns out to be. So by the end of August, just August 31st, I'm anticipating, if the rate stays the same, another $17,000 worth of income, and we'll, just by the end of August, we'll have over $36,000 worth of revenue from that auto attendant just for like the Memorial to Labor Day. Now, that auto attendant is fully functional 24/7, 365 days a year, and we are coming to find that people are very honest.
That was my next question. How do you know how many residents are in that car?
Or
Well, non-residents.
Non-residents.
Because
Well,
during.
they have to, we have an attendant
We have
there.
Oh, there's still an attendant.
Yeah.
So
We
go to
have
the
an
drive-in movie theater in the
attendant.
truck.
If a non-resident, if a resident,
He got popped out.
we collect their receipt.
They open they look in the trunk.
They did. Yes, they did. Did you get your question answered, Lori?
No, that was funny, but, so the attendant,
The attendant will collect their receipt to go, as they go down the stairs.
And that's to my point, during the week when we don't have an attendant there, we are still seeing that people are honest, they are paying for their parking and their admission. It's going, because it's automatic through the attendant, you know, they're putting their credit card in, the whole thing's being processed, they're getting their tickets. Nobody is there to receive it, but they have already paid their admission, and people are honest. Are some people falling through the cracks? Yes, of course, but that's just the cost of doing business. I think we are all very happy and excited about how this has just been embraced, and it really is working.
The sand replenishment, we're supposed to do that on an annual basis, we're supposed to.
No, it's a 5-year monitoring
And
program.
what's the results?
Well, right now, we won't know until the end of 5 years.
The nourishment.
On what
Yeah.
we need, because it ebbs and flows, and, I mean, obviously, we've lost sand because Lake Michigan is so much higher, but in terms of how the breakwaters and all of that, at the end of the monitoring
5
period,
years.
we'll get a report on what we need to do.
I know with the lake waters are higher, if we've been educating the people downstream that it's not
Well,
Rosewood that's causing
I
it.
think the Chicago Tribune, frankly, has done a great job of educating all of the Chicagoland area about how the lake levels have changed and people are losing beaches. But, I mean, that's generally our story, is everybody's losing
I mean, I haven't got any
beaches.
complaints lately, I mean, in a
Yeah,
while,
no.
I don't know if you've got, anybody else
No.
has got any? I think there's been a good job of educating the
Yeah.
the public on that.
So, Annette, going back to the report, so the participants admissions, 417. It's on page
Yes.
43 or 61. Is that the number of people then that would be captured by the
Yes,
machine?
from the
Yes.
auto attendant, yeah, that, so 417 admissions have been processed, yes.
Cool.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
While you're sitting there,
Yep.
vouchers.
Anything unusual in the vouchers?
Oh, good.
Vouchers?
No,
look
the
good.
bills presented for the board's review on July 11th are checks written from June 23rd through July 6, 2017. They total $783,710. Nothing is unusual or unbudgeted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Bernstein, do you want to address the board?
I think it's been a very long meeting. I will be very brief. The seniors have asked repeatedly for an advisory meeting. And it would have to be during the day because a lot of them don't drive at night. There is several issues that they are dealing with right now, and none of them have to do with the change in the rec center, but actually the change in the population. You have these younger people who come in and take a class or two and then leave and go out to lunch and what else they do in the afternoon. The seniors would like to stay. There is a transportation issue with the seniors, and I don't know if that's a Park District issue at all. But there is a transportation issue getting them there. As far as Highland Park Country Club is concerned, if I gave a party, it would be a depression party. I'd put nets on the seat because those springs come up and get you. I'd have Superdog cater it, so I wouldn't have to use the minimal equipment they have or silverware. Just call it a day. And if you're going to be using that as a facility for banquets, then you're going to have to put money into it, and you're going to have to take care of it.
Okay.
Because it's really poorly, and it doesn't represent you well. Period.
And good night.
Good night.
I love that woman.
Yeah, she's
You
a classic.
Who doesn't?
Can I get a motion to go into closed session pursuant to
I move.
Collins
No, he's got to read it.
sections of the Open Meeting Act?
Can I move in advance?
No.
We'll read it in a minute, so you don't have to read
Okay.
it all. There's no one here.
Terry,
Can I move to we go to closed session?
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're in closed.
Fun night.
There is food.